The Louie T Network is powered by MusicHead University. MusicHeads, classes in session. Turn me up. Enroll on YouTube now. Link is in the description.
Who else could it be but me, your man, Louie T? Welcome to the Command Post Live. You know what it is. Post up. Take command. I, of course, am your commander-in-chief, Louie T. Thank you for joining me. We got a big one tonight, man. This is going to be a fun show. I'm looking forward to chopping it up with you guys about a number of topics. We actually had some news today. It seems like every time we have an off day, there's still something going on with the team. And all of it usually positive. You know, nothing crazy, nothing negative. That's the beauty of this offseason and all of that it has brung to this point, is that it's been a lot of positivity, a lot of good things going on with the team. And we're going to talk numbers tonight. We're going to play the numbers game tonight. And so that's going to be really fun. We're going to play the numbers game tonight. And the reason that this is significant is the roster is going to be a lot of fun to kind of watch it unfold. And in order to kind of figure out where everybody kind of fits in the grand scheme of things, thank you. You got to understand what the numbers game looks like. And then included in that numbers game, we're going to look at some of our bigger name players. We don't have many. Okay. All right. We've talked about these guys ad nauseum, especially in the offseason leading up to camp, about where we felt like some of these guys were. Sam Cosmi, Deron Payne, Jonathan Allen, Terry McLaurin, where they rank among their peers at their particular position groups. And so Madden recently released its ratings, and not that Madden is the end all be all, but it is a good working reference point to kind of gauge what the consensus outside of our market is, right? Madden is usually not too far off. I wouldn't say that they are always spot on, and we kind of critiqued a lot of their ratings with the running backs last night, but they're not that far off. Okay, you could tinker a little bit here, look, and nobody usually is happy with their Madden rating unless it's 99, right? Or they're at the top of the totem pole at their particular position. Most people have gripes with, oh, I should be faster, or I should have a better overall, yada, yada, yada. But we're going to take a look at a lot of things tonight because we've had healthy discussion in dollar. Where is Terry? Is Terry a top 10 receiver? We're going to talk about that tonight, right? Deron Payne, Jonathan Allen. We saw the league thinks very highly of Jonathan Allen. He was ranked 54th, I believe, in the top 100, okay? Where does he rank amongst his peers, right? So we talk Deron Payne all the time, and somebody brought this up to me last week, I believe it was, maybe the week before, in the comment section. They said, Louie T, you always talk about Deron Payne. When you talk about the two defensive tackles, you put Deron Payne over Jonathan Allen all the time. I think Allen's better than Payne, and he's not alone. And the consensus around the league is that Jonathan Allen is the better of the two defensive tackles. So we'll talk about all of that tonight here on the program as we get into the numbers game. It should be a lot of fun, and I'm looking for your participation. So let's get to our first order of business. Commanders were on an off day, but that did not stop the news from coming and trickling down. Let's jump right in to the proceedings this evening, where we find John Keim. I'm going to give a shout out to John Keim, the OG, for putting out these couple of tweets here in nice and neat order for me, so I didn't have to go digging around on multiple different tweets. Keim initially tweeted out about the moves that Washington had made earlier in the day. So Washington initially signed Byron Pringle. So that raised antennas. Byron Pringle, welcome back. Welcome back. Welcome back. Welcome back. Welcome back to Byron Pringle, who I actually thought was really solid for us last year. Had they brought him back initially, when they brought back JC Ice, and when they brought back Cornelius Lucas, when they brought back Jeremy Reeves, when they were bringing back some of the guys that were here last year, I would have been cool with them bringing back Byron Pringle. You know, I thought he played well last season. So I think there is a specific reason as to why they brought him back. We're going to dive into that here in a bit. But that was the first move that was made. And everybody went, oh, okay, Byron Pringle. So obviously everybody's attention immediately went to receiver. Well, they must not be very happy with their receiver position. And I'm like, yeah, I don't really know about that. We'll discuss. But the bigger picture for me was, if you're bringing in a guy, somebody's got to go, right? Well, what are we doing here? So it took a while, but they also signed Riley Patterson off waivers. And remember, this is the beauty of being ass, is that we were the second worst team in football behind Carolina last year. So because of that, we get second dibs on anybody that has to pass through waiver claims. If somebody gets released and we like them and Carolina doesn't, and we put in a waiver claim, we get them, right? And this is really going to help us for situations like this with a kicker in particular, because we need a kicker. And anytime somebody cuts a kicker, we're going to be one of the first teams. Hey, oh, wait a minute. You don't want that anymore? Let us check it out first, right? So we get to parse through everything before the rest of the league outside of Carolina gets to look at it. If we decide, hey, we'd like to kick the tires on that player, we put in the waiver claim, they're coming to Washington. That's the only thing that is positive other than the draft selection of being garbage, is that you get first dibs. And when your roster is in the state that ours is in, you want first dibs on anything that passes through waiver claims. So I told you, the minute that kickers started passing through the waiver claims, we were going to be interested. I talked about this briefly during the course of the week, that the kicking situation went from interesting to important very fast, with the 3 missed kicks on, I believe it was Tuesday, if I'm not mistaken, by place kicker Ramiz Ahmed. But anyway, I digress. They had put in a waiver claim for kicker Riley Patterson. I've got some interesting takes on him. So then that was 2 players that we were adding. I'm like, okay, you're adding a receiver, you're adding a kicker. Who's getting released here? I didn't expect them to release Ramiz Ahmed because, again, this is a kicking competition. In order to have a competition, you need more than one participant. So they weren't going to cut Ramiz Ahmed, at least not yet, right? So we later found out that they released Dax Milne and Damiere Byrd, 2 wide receivers, to free up the 2 spots for the incoming wide receiver, Byron Pringle, and the incoming kicker, Riley Patterson. So who thought that either one of those receivers are going to make the roster? Raise your hand. I'll give you guys a second to go ahead and put your hands up. I'm looking. There's one hand. And I see a sign. Dax Milne Fan Club. Established 2021. Interesting. So one hand out of the hundreds of thousands out there, one hand. And that was, I think, the president of the Dax Milne Fan Club. So nobody thought these guys were making the team. Okay, so no surprises here. They cut 2 receivers. It was a log jam at receiver anyway on the back end. So not really surprised by that. So let's talk more about Riley Patterson, shall we? And then we'll get to Byron Pringle here in a second. But I want to focus on Patterson. So John Keim added this tweet in. Patterson has made 59 of 67 field goal attempts, 15 of 17 with Detroit last season, 93 of 97 on a career extra points. Good chance for him, Kime writes. Washington needed more comp. If Patterson doesn't work, other vets will come free later in August. Second waiver claim key. So I just kind of explained that to you, right? That if anybody gets cut outside of Carolina, we have first dibs. So they're in a kicker that's going to get released that we won't check out first before we pass him on to the rest of the league. All right. And that's other positions as well. They're in the player that if this group is interested in, that they won't get a chance to look at first before they pass him to the rest of the league. So in terms of Patterson, I appreciate John for giving us the skinny on the details, but we got to dive deep on this kicker here. You're going to come in here and potentially win this job. We need to know what the hell we're walking into, okay? Because I already told you, kicker's going to be pretty damn important for this team in the upcoming season, all right? We still don't know if this offense is capable of scoring 30 in any given game. Hell, we don't even know if this offense is capable of scoring 24 points because we haven't done it in like 4 years, right? So let's take a look at Riley Patterson's career and what he's done. And you really want to focus more on the recent Riley Patterson because I have some early Riley Patterson stories. They aren't very good. So he started out his career in Detroit in 2021. 13 of 14 in the field goal department, 92 point, essentially 93%. It's great. The breakdown is key for me, right? Because I need to know what you're out here doing from what distances. Because if you're stockpiling a bunch of makes from 29 to 20, or from 20 to 29 and 30 to 39, that's all fine and dandy. I'm glad you're making them. It's good to know that you're reliable from the distances that you're supposed to make kicks from. But really, I like to know, what are you doing in the money distance, which is 40 to 49? That's where the bulk of your field goals that are going to really help the team are going to come from. And when I say help the team, it's expected that you make kicks from 30 to 39 and 20 to 29. So I as a fan, the expectation is that's going in. The ones that are a little tricky, a little dicey, the 47, the 48, the 43, the 49. Those are the ones that you're going to kick more often that I'm going, I wonder, is he going to make this kick or is he going to piss me off? And you don't want to piss me off. And then obviously the big leg kicks, the 50 and over. Joey Sly was a pleasure to have here. Because on the big, long, deep kicks, I really wasn't all that concerned with Joey. I knew the leg was there. And a lot of times the accuracy was too. And it for me with Joey, which was really frustrating, it was the money distance. It was the chippies, the 32-yard field goal. Joey might push that bitch. You're like, Joey, you knock it down from 58. And then you miss from 38. Make it make sense. But that was Joey Sly. You had to take the good with the bad. So we got to get into what this guy has done throughout his career. So in his rookie season, 13 of 14, very, very good season. 3 of 3 from 20 to 29, 6 of 6 from 30 to 39. 4 of 4 in the money distance, and then he missed his only kick from 50. Let me stop you right there. I watched this man early in his career in Jacksonville. There was a game over in London. You know, the Jaguars play in London quite a bit. And this was my first exposure to Riley Patterson. So I was a little bit biased from that point forward. He has since won me over and gained my respect. But this was not a great first impression. And as they always say, you never get a second chance to make a first impression. So I'm watching this game. Riley Patterson has a chance to kick the game-winning field goal. I want to say that they're playing against the Falcons, I think. Game that's very winnable for Jacksonville here. And all Riley Patterson has to do is make a kick from like 51 yards out. Riley Patterson not only missed this kick, the ball landed about 4 yards short of the crossbar. I said, wait a minute. Did I mess up the distance? Is it 57, not 51? No. It's a 51-yard field goal. And he just kicked it 47 yards. Wait a minute. What are we doing here, guy? Are you an NFL kicker or not? Because we don't do that anymore up here in this league. We don't miss 50-yard field goals because they're short. You can't kick in this league if you can't kick the ball 50 yards. Now, I think he might have had some trouble with his footing on that kick. It didn't look like it. I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt because we know when you go over in London, those field conditions aren't usually the best. It's usually like playing on mud, essentially, green mud. So I immediately said to myself, well, that guy doesn't have a big leg. He could never kick for my favorite team. And I moved on. And that was what stuck with me with Riley Patterson. So I figured he wasn't going to make it very long in this league because short-legged kickers don't last long. Because at some point, I'm going to need you to kick a 54-yard field goal. If you can't do it, you can't be my kicker. Okay? I love the guys like Sean Sweezum who are extremely accurate and not going to miss anything under 50. But if you ask them to go out there and kick a 50-yard field goal, good luck. You're going to need it. So he ended up going 30 of 35 that year for the Jaguars, 85.7%. So essentially 86%. That's not bad. Not bad, especially for 35 attempts. That's pretty good. 8 of 8 from 20 to 29. You better not miss any kicks in that distance. 10 of 11 from 30 to 39. I prefer you to be perfect there too. Again, I expect you to make anything 20 to 39 yards. I expect you to make. Do we have any objections? We shouldn't. It's when you get to the money distance and further that I'll allow a little leeway, right? 40 to 49, he was 10 of 13. Again, not bad, but you can be better. And then he was 2 of 3 from 50. So the one miss that year that I saw when he was over in London was the first kick he kicked from 50 plus, and it was a disaster. And he went on to make a couple of kicks thereafter. And I said, okay, maybe he just had bad footing. Okay. The extra points, he was perfect in his rookie season. He was 36 of 37. So again, some of our kickers have been disastrous on extra points. You know, Joey Sly was always good for a missed extra point. Every 3 games or so, Joey Sly was going to push an extra point. So, so far, so good. You go to Detroit last year, and he split time with the Lions and the Browns. Dustin Hopkins was fantastic. I don't know if you guys saw this or not. Our old buddy, old chum, old pal, Dustin Hopkins just got this fat-ass contract that makes him the 3rd highest paid kicker in the NFL because he was awesome for the Browns last year. Does that sound familiar to you? Doesn't that always happen to us? Anyway, he got hurt. The Browns needed a guy to fill in for them. Enter in Riley Patterson for that 2-game stretch where Dustin Hopkins was out. Anyway, in his time, his brief stint with the Lions last year, 15 of 17, 88.2%. 2 of 3 from 20 to 29, not good. 10 of 10 from 30 to 39, really good. 2 of 2 from the money distance, great. And then 1 of 2 from 50 plus, 52 being his long. In his career, 53 is his longest kick. That does worry me. I don't think you can trot him out there for a 55, 56-yard kick. That was never an issue with Joey Sly. I could send Joey out there for a 60-yard kick. And in my mind, I'm telling myself, Joey's going to nail that bitch. Probably can't do that with Riley Patterson. As a matter of fact, I know you can't do that with Riley Patterson. I think his distance, 55 might be his distance. I think you're pushing it. I think 54 is as good as you're going to get from him. He does not have a make in his career over 53. So that does worry me a bit. Last year, he was a combined 41 of 44 from extra points, from in terms of extra points. So while that's not bad, he missed 3 extra points. That's not good either. I'd like you to make your extra points. So technically speaking, he missed 4 kicks in the 30 to 39 range, which again, I need you to make those, right? We've had games lost because we missed extra points and we had to start chasing points. So I'd prefer you to make your extra points. I'd prefer you to make your kicks 30 to 39. All in all, he's a solid kicker. He's going to come in here and compete. He's better than Ramiz Ahmed. So right now, I'd give him the leg up. Did you see what I just did there in the kicking competition? Ultimately, when it's all said and done, I would love for them to bring another guy in here too. But I think if he kicks well, they'll be satisfied with Riley Patterson because he has an NFL track record, a proven one at that. He's been solid. And I think they'll be just fine with his leg and his capabilities if he kicks well in camp and in the preseason. I would love for them to look for a bigger leg kicker, but accuracy is more important than kicking power, because how often are you going to ask your kicker to kick it from 54, 55, 56? Not often. Maybe 5-6 times a year, you're going to ask your kicker to kick a 50-plus yard field goal. If you're lucky, you don't ask him to do it that many times. But again, it's the NFL. If you believe in your kicker and you get to the 37-yard line and your drive stalls out, if you got your kicker and you believe in him, you'll send him out there for a 54-yard field goal, 55-yard field goal. The Ravens don't hesitate with Justin Tucker. No matter what the circumstances are, the environment is, they don't hesitate. They don't blink. The Chiefs don't blink or hesitate with Harrison Butker, even though he put his foot in his mouth this year. See what I did there? The Bengals don't hesitate with Shooter. With their kicker, Shooter. So there's certain teams that just, hey, we know we got a guy. The Raiders don't hesitate with their kicker. There'll be some hesitation with Riley Patterson. As long as he's making his kicks in camp and in the preseason, the job is his to lose. We'll see what happens. I would love for them to bring in one more guy, though. But if Riley Patterson ends up being the kicker, which my money's on Riley Patterson. I told you when we signed Ramiz Ahmed, my money's not on Ramiz Ahmed being our day one, week one, opening day kicker. My money's on Riley Patterson right now until otherwise notified. Now, if he goes out, wets the bed in the first preseason game versus the Jets, he gets 3 attempts and goes 1 of 3. Uh-oh. SpaghettiOs. We'll be hitting the waiver wire looking for more options. If he goes out, goes 3 of 3 in that game, 2 of 2 in the extra point department, and then the second game against the Dolphins, repeats that, goes 2 of 2 in the field goal department, 3 of 3 in the extra point department, and doesn't miss a kick all summer, he's our kicker. So we'll see what happens. But real quick on Byron Pringle. Once you pop, the fun don't stop. We saw that last year. I thought he played well at receiver for us. Made a lot of big catches in some, spots, especially the Patriots game. He was really good in that game in particular. When his number was called, he really played the receiver position pretty well. The reason I think they added him, and the first thing that everybody kind of got, went sideways with his signing with, they must not believe in the receiver position. And then I saw a whole bunch of, nobody outside of Terry McLaurin has been all that impressive in training camp to this point. So of course they're going to bring in a receiver. So if that's the case, right? If nobody's been impressive in camp to this point outside of Terry McLaurin, bringing in Byron Pringle is really going to spice the group up, huh? He's really going to change our fortunes. Get out of here with that foolishness. This, to me, was all about special teams because Byron Pringle is a core special teamer. Byron Pringle can return kickoffs. He did it for us last year. Not very good. He did have a fumble last year, but he does have a kick return touchdown in his NFL career. So he can and will be able to do that effectively. They still don't know who's returning kickoffs for us. They're trotting. I read you the list of guys that they had fielding kickoffs. I don't think they're confident in the guys that they're putting back there right now. They want more guys to come in, and they want to take a look at Byron Pringle, see if he can potentially be the answer. They know he can play the receiver position. They know he can run down and make a tackle on special teams. So he checks all of the boxes, right? He's got NFL experience. They know he can run. He's got speed. That always helps too. So he could easily come in here and win a spot. I think this is more about special teams, kickoff return in particular, and the back end of the receiver room. It's competitive, and they're going to throw another competitive player in the mix that they think can help. And ultimately, he may not make the team. He may not make this football team. But he has a much better chance of making it than Damiere Byrd and Dax Milne, two players that they cut today. They've already seen enough with those guys, enough to know that they can't offer us anything that we can't get from somebody that's already here on the roster. Byron Pringle offers you something that very few of the receivers that we currently have can offer in one package. I think Tinsley's been doing some good things. He made this team last year. We know that Tinsley can play the receiver position. We know that Tinsley can run down and make a tackle on special teams. Can Tinsley return punts or kickoffs? No. Is Tinsley fast? No. So he doesn't check all the boxes that Byron Pringle checks. You know, Bryson Tremaine, he can go down and make a tackle on special teams. Bryson Tremaine, can he return punts or kickoffs? No. Can he play the receiver position? We think so. We're not sure. Byron Pringle can. We know that. We know Byron Pringle can return kicks, and we know he has speed. You're going to find very few guys at the back end of the roster who check all of the boxes, like an Olamide Zaccheaus, who does check all of those boxes. This is why he's a guy that probably is going to make this football team. Always keep in mind when we start having these conversations about players who might get cut, who may be traded, and we're going to have all those discussions tonight because I was listening to John Keim's podcast here recently, and him and Bram Weinstein were talking about guys like De'Ami Brown and Jamin Davis potentially getting cut or getting traded, rather. I don't really know if there's a market for either one of those guys right now. I think there could be a market for Jamin Davis. Word out on the street is they are exclusively looking at this man as an edge rusher. I still thought there was value with Jamin Davis as a linebacker because they were still using him in that capacity over the spring. They were using him against tight ends and running backs and letting him run, use his speed. And they said, okay, we've seen enough of that. Can you rush the quarterback? It's really tough. So, you know, every time I brought it up with John Keim about us having a situational pass rusher, he kept bringing up Jamin Davis. I rarely bring him up. I always talk about Dante Fowler Jr. because I know what he's capable of, and I know he's making this football team. I know he can get to the quarterback. Jamin Davis he looks the part, but he's never played defensive end before in his life. You think that this is just an easy transition? You're just going to throw him out there, and all of a sudden he's going to be using spin moves, rips, dips, and crossovers and long arm of the law, and he's just going to be this polished pass rusher? Yeah, right. You must be out of your mind. That takes time, reps, over and over and over again. So if they view Jamin Davis as an edge rusher, he's not making his football team because he holds no value as an edge rusher right now. Now, if they view him as a linebacker who could potentially rush on third downs, and even in that case, I want Jamin Davis standing up as a linebacker and you blitz him that way. Or you send him on a stunt and he works with the defensive line. Because if you get him scot-free, he'll get to the quarterback in a jiffy. But if you get him on a body and you ask him to beat a guy, I don't see Jamin Davis beating that, offensive lineman, tight end, et cetera, et cetera. So it'll be interesting to see if they can generate value for him to get a conditional 7th round pick, a 6th round pick for Jamin Davis. It'll be interesting to see if a Byron Pringle can come in here and do all of the things that Dyami Brown does, because they're very similar players. Pringle is just as fast, if not faster, than Dyami Brown. Pringle is just as good on special teams from a, gunner going down and making a tackle standpoint on special teams as Dyami Brown is. So there's no advantage for Brown there, which is what he holds over a lot of players currently on the roster, is he's much better at special teams than them. Brown can play the receiver position. So can Byron Pringle. He proved that to us last year, but he had already proven that in the league with the Chiefs. He can play the receiver position. And Byron Pringle can offer something that Dyami Brown can't. Special teams return ability. So you could theoretically use him as a replacement for Dyami Brown. No Byron Pringle, Dyami Brown's a shoo-in to make this team. With Byron Pringle here now, Dyami Brown becomes very expendable. You can work a deal where somebody will give you a 6th or a 7th round pick for Dyami Brown. You do it. If you think Byron Pringle can fill his shoes, which none of us feel like he can't, right? All of us feel like Byron Pringle can do what Dyami Brown does, at least to this point. So it's interesting to see that signing and what kind of impact it could or could not have. They could bring Byron Pringle here and cut him 2 weeks from now. It feels like they want to try to see if they can extract value out of some of the guys that may have some sort of trade value. Jamin Davis, Dyami Brown are 2 players that kind of top that list for me, at least. We'll see. So let's talk about the numbers game. Let's get to the numbers game. All right. So at some point, the conversation surrounding the roster gets real. It's really hard to pinpoint anything 1 week into camp, fully padded practice into camp, without any preseason games. I'm telling you, those joint practices are going to go a long way in determining not necessarily who's making the roster as much as, hey, who's starting? You good enough to start? We'll find out. Hey, Benjamin St. Juice, Manuel Forbes, Michael Davis, you good enough to start? Who's trying to start at corner? We'll find out against Aaron Rodgers and Mike Williams and the Ohio State receiver. I don't know why I'm blanking on his name. We'll find out a lot. Garrett Wilson, that's his name. When Aaron Rodgers gets out there and is able to start flinging the ball around. We'll find out when Tyreek Hill comes to town, or rather when we go to South Beach and we visit the Dolphins and we see Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle and maybe Odell Beckham Jr. if he's healthy. We'll find out real quick what those boys are about in that secondary. We'll find out real quick what Brandon Coleman's talking about when we see that Jets front come over here, or we go up there and we see that Jets front and he's all wide-eyed and he's seeing these real NFL professional pass rushers, because we don't have those in camp. You know, the best we've got at defensive end is Dorrance Armstrong. And not to shit on Dorrance Armstrong, he's solid. But he ain't what the Jets and Dolphins got. So we'll find out real quick what we have, right? We'll find out real quick. But let's play the numbers game, shall we? I'm not so interested right now with the who as much as the number, right? We can get to the who in a second. How this is going to ultimately work is, where are they going to trim off fat? What positions do they believe need to have more players at it? And for instance, 9 or 10 offensive linemen goes a long way in determining if you're keeping 3 or 4 backs or 3 or 4 tight ends, right? Because those are two of the easier positions to trim off fat at. You're keeping a 10th offensive lineman because you don't really know how good your group is, or you don't trust the depth necessarily. You don't want to expose one of your offensive linemen because you think you're going to probably need to tap into that group. So you want to keep 10 instead of 9. Cool. All right. I really think you only need 3 backs with this current roster as it's constructed. I don't think we're super talented at the running back position where you need to be keeping a whole heap of backs. If that's the case, if we're keeping 3, then guess what? Chris Rodriguez Jr. or Jeremy McNichols. Decision has to be made. Because you cut one of those guys, especially if it's Chris Rodriguez Jr., I think a lot of people around the league say, hey, that young fella's not that bad. You cut him, you're probably not getting him back. Three or 4 tight ends. We've had this discussion already. If it's 3, you know the 3. Zach Ertz, John Bates, and Ben Sinnott. If it's 4, now you open up the discussion to Cole Turner or Amani Rodgers. I think where some of the most heated competitions will be defensive tackle. Safety is, I think, the hottest position on the roster right now. Like, we're piping hot at the safety position. It's to the point where we got an abundance of riches. I mean, a wealth, an embarrassment of riches at safety, to the point where, like, we're going to have to cut like 2 dudes that we probably want to keep on the roster. I mean, obviously, Tyler Owens is undrafted. And so I don't see him making the roster, even if he plays his ass off this summer and is killing it in the preseason. I feel like you should be able to get him onto your practice squad as long as he doesn't go out in preseason and absolutely murder it. If you feel like he's playing that well for you in the preseason after the first game, because we've seen some good things from him throughout camp to this point. He's flashed. He's made some plays. That's one of those dudes you put on ice after the first preseason game. Nope, you're not playing. You won't be putting a bunch of good tape out there for the rest of the league to see. So we can get you onto the practice squad. I just don't see him taking up a roster spot in his rookie season as an undrafted rookie. I think they can work with him more. I think they could get him onto the practice squad. And if in a pinch, if need be, he could be pulled up onto the active roster and help you on special teams and things of that nature. But even with Tyler Owens being pushed aside, you still, and again, the number at safety should be 5. It should be 5. Defensive back should be 10. 5 corners, 5 safeties. We got about 7 safeties vying for what I think is 5 spots. You've got, obviously, your 2 starters in Jeremy Chin and Quan Martin. You have, I think, Jeremy Reeves, who isn't going anywhere, core special teamer, former Pro Bowl, All-Pro special teamer. I just don't see how you cut him. That's 3. Even though he's fighting for playing time, I think he's the first guy off the bench. And if they go 3 safety sets, I think that Defoe, Derek Forrest, is your 3rd safety. So that's 4 safeties. Excuse me. They drafted Dominique Hampton. I already told you I expect every single player they drafted, with the exception of Javonte Jean-Baptiste, to be on this roster. So that goes for Dominique Hampton. That goes for Jordan McGee and all the rest of the guys from the first 2 days of the draft. So that makes 5 if you count Dominique Hampton. We still haven't talked about Percival Butler, and then I just talked about Tyler Owens. So you've got 7 safeties for 5 spots. I've already told you I think Percival Butler is the odd man out. Owens, I think you can put on to the practice squad. And so we'll see what they ultimately decide to do. I can't envision them keeping a 6th safety. Corner is going to be interesting because we have absolutely no idea what they're going to do at that 5th and final corner spot. The first 4 are spoken for already. Emmanuel Forbes, Michael Davis, Benjamin St. Juste are all outside corners, with Mike Sainristil as your 4th corner, as your primary nickel. Who's the 5th guy? I think there's 1 spot and probably like 4 or 5 corners vying for 1 spot. Right? You get to the defensive tackle position, another hot battle. I think that's going to be interesting because really the numbers are what's going to be interesting there. Do you keep 5 defensive tackles or 4? Normally you keep 4 defensive tackles. That's the normal going rate. But we know Dan Quinn loves to interchange defensive linemen, right? He loves to swap these guys in and out, keep them fresh, keeps rotating them. If you're going to do that, then you probably need to keep 5. We don't have a lot of defensive ends, so maybe you keep more defensive tackles than you do defensive ends, because normally it's 4 defensive ends, maybe a 5th if you love your group, and then it's 4 defensive tackles for a grand total of 8 or 9. If the number is 9, and that's the number that it was in Dallas for Dan Quinn, it was 9. Normally it's 5 defensive ends, 4 defensive tackles. I think it's the inverse here in Washington: 5 defensive tackles, 4 defensive ends, because we just don't have a lot of talent at defensive end, right? When you think about it this way, Jonathan Allen, Deron Payne, Johnny Newton, all locks. John Ridgeway feels really comfortable to me. I don't want to call him a lock, but he feels really comfortable to me. All right. So, and then you have Fedarian Mathis. So that's 5. They could keep Fedarian Mathis. They could cut Fedarian Mathis. It's up to them, and how he plays this offseason is really going to go a long way in determining that. So, do we have any mods out there? Maybe we don't. Is this Ian guy causing problems or something? Just say the word, and I'll make him go away if it's a problem. Because I don't see any mods out there. Okay. Bow. Like magic. All right. So, defensive tackle is interesting. 4 or 5. At defensive end, I think the number is 4. I don't even, it's hard to even get to 4 when you think about our defensive ends. We're so lackluster at defensive end. Obviously, you have Dorrance Armstrong Jr. and you have Cleveland Farrell, your 2 starting defensive ends. Dante Fowler Jr. is your first backup, your primary situational pass rusher. What do we have after that? I mean, KJ Henry, Andre Jones Jr. Like, if those are guys that you're relying on, you're probably in some trouble. You're probably in some trouble. Now, I like FA, but remember, FA right now is, and this is why I didn't think Andre Jones Jr. or any of those guys are going to make the roster, because I was relying and counting on FA. FA's on the PUP list. FA's still recovering from surgery. We don't know when FA will be ready to contribute. And even when he is healthy, he's still got to work himself into game shape. So, again, we'll see what happens. At the end of the day, it's going to be interesting to see what they do on the defensive line, right? On offense, offensive line is going to determine where you can cut off and trim off some fat, kind of figure out what's going to happen. The back end of the receiver position is interesting, because I've already made the case for 4 guys already being on the roster. But with Byron Pringle entering the chat, I think Dyami Brown now, that to me, they feel like duplicates. You don't need both of them. You just need one of them. So if Pringle can come in and show enough, he might be able to get Dyami the hell up out of here, right? So here's, in my mind's eye, how it goes. Terry McLaurin, Jahan Dotson, Luke McCaffrey, and one of these 2 guys are making the roster. Byron Pringle or Dyami Brown. So that will put a slash in between them, because one of those dudes is making the team. Olamide Zaccheaus, I think, is in the driver's seat for that 5th wide receiver position. He's not a lock, but I feel like he is 5th. And then they're going to keep one more receiver, a 6th receiver, and who knows who that's going to be. Tinsley's made a case. Bryson Tremaine's making a little bit of noise. Jamison Crowder is the old wily veteran and probably right now still your best punt returner on the roster. So, and we know he can play receiver too. So he still holds value. Don't want to forget about JC Ice, right? So again, can they find somebody to return punts? Dan Quinn has talked about the importance of making that first defender miss. Is there somebody out there that they trust to first field the punt and then second be able to make somebody miss and get up the field and get you 7 to 10 yards? If they can find a guy that can do that, possibly return kickoffs too, be a core special teamer, you can kill a lot of these birds with one stone instead of having to split up the responsibilities. Jamison Crowder's returning punts, and this guy's returning kickoffs, and this, that, and the third. I think they would prefer to keep it tight so you don't have to do that, right? But we'll see. At the end of the day, it'll be interesting to see what they do there at receiver, what they do at safety, what they do at defensive tackle. And offensive line, I don't think it's as interesting in terms of the players, because if they want to keep 9, we know who the 9 are. If they want to keep 10, I think we know who the 10 are. I don't think it's as, debatable, right? I think it's more about, do you want 9? Are you comfortable with 9? Or are you, which is why they're doing all of this musical chair stuff, checking to see if Nick Allegretti can play center too, checking to see if Dieter can play guard as well, right? Checking to see if Ricky Stromberg, and he's another guy that might not make this football team. What you also have to get comfortable with is that if they didn't sign you, if they didn't bring you here, they don't have any ties to you, right? For instance, Jamin Davis is a prime example of, bro, I didn't draft you. You're not my draft pick. We didn't pick up your 5th-year option for a reason. We brought in Anthony Pittman. We brought in Mykal Walker. We drafted Jordan McGee. We got stuff, bruh. We don't need you at linebacker. If you can't carve out a niche for yourself somewhere else, deuces. We don't need you, bruh. And you can look around the roster and say the same thing for a number of guys. You already saw what they did to Dax Milne. Took him out back, pop, pop. So you got to understand, if they didn't bring you here, they don't have any ties to you. You don't have, like, we got to stop talking about Braden Daniels being a 4th-round pick and Ricky Stromberg being a 3rd-round pick. They didn't draft them in the 3rd round or the 4th round. They don't give 2 shits about Braden Daniels being a 4th-round pick. They will take him out back and put 2 in his career here in Washington so quick. Pop, pop. They'll do it so fast, it'll make your damn head spin. Ricky Stromberg is running with the 3s right now. They will take Ricky's ass out back, pop, pop. So, again, they signed Michael Dieter, right? They brought in Tyler Biotish. They brought in Nick Allegretti. They brought in a slew of guys. They drafted Brandon Coleman. They're not effing around, right? There's only a select few guys. They re-signed Cornelius Lucas. They're cool with Trent Scott. They like Chris Paul. That's the group right there, right? That's just 9, 10 guys right there. A lot of these other dudes don't stand a chance. So when you start thinking about corners, don't forget about Noah Igbenogany. They signed him. A lot of people have been talking about Castro Fields. They did not sign. They did not draft Castro Fields. They brought in Noah Igbenogany. They brought in James Pierre. Don't forget about those dudes. I remember when they signed Anthony Pittman, I'm like, there's no way he's making the roster. He's been getting a lot of run in practice with the 2nd unit, along with Mykal Walker and Jordan McGee. So, look, man, I'm not saying, I'm just saying, don't forget about those 21 dudes that they signed over the offseason. All of them won't make the roster, but a huge chunk of them will. And if it comes down to a guy that they brought here, all things equal, obviously, if a player that was here last year goes out and outperforms the guy that they brought here, then the guy that they brought in can kick rocks. He can hit the bricks. But if everything's equal, and they have to choose between a draft pick from last year's draft class, a class that they did not draft, and a guy that they just brought here in free agency or drafted themselves, who do you think they're going to take? So keep that in mind, right? The numbers game is going to be fascinating because as we get to the first joint practice week. And keep in mind, newsflash, the joint practices are next week. Okay? Like, these things are coming very rapidly. Joint practices are next week against the Jets. The preseason game is next Saturday. I don't think a lot of you have really internalized that yet. Okay? The week after that, joint practices with the Dolphins, preseason game that Saturday. We're going to know a lot about this team here very shortly. So let's continue the numbers game, shall we? And let's have some fun now. So I want you to take a look at the Commanders receivers. These are their ratings on Madden. All right. Shout out to Mason Kinahan for compiling all of these numbers and getting all of these statistics and putting them in one place. Poor Dax Milne. Salute to Dax Milne and his service. May he find work elsewhere. All right, so these are the Madden ratings for our receivers currently. Terry McLaurin is 89. Jahan Dotson is 75. Jamison Crowder, who we don't even know if he's going to make the roster or not, is 75 and our third best wide receiver. Again, take the Madden ratings with a grain of salt. But the fact that Olamide Zaccheaus and Jamison Crowder are the third and fourth best receivers, technically, according to Madden, on our roster, and neither one of them are guaranteed a roster spot, tells you the state of our wide receiver position, right? Anyway, let's have the Terry McLaurin discussion right now. Let's do it. Right now. Right now. Right now. Right now. So, with that said, let's look at what Madden deems to be the best receivers in football in numerical order. So we've had this discussion numerous times about where Terry ranks in the league. Some of you think he's top 10. I've said he's anywhere in that 12 to 14, 15 range. That's where you start having the Terry McLaurin discussion, from 12 back to about 15 or 16. He's no worse than 16. I don't think he's any higher than 12. Somewhere in there, Terry's going to fall, right? So let's see where Madden has him. Tyreek Hill, obviously, is 1. Okay. Justin Jefferson is 2. I don't think we have any arguments to this point. CeeDee Lamb is 3. Fine. AJ Brown is 4. Good. Amon-Ra St. Brown, 5. Better than Devontae Adams? I don't know about that. Fine. Devontae Adams, 6. Jamar Chase, 7. Jamar Chase, 7th? Again, Madden is going off of production. Okay? So when you look at Madden ratings, they fluctuate from year to year. If you had a big year last year, your ratings are going to go up. If you had a down year, your ratings are going to go down. So that tells you why Jamar Chase is, you look at these same ratings last year, Jamar Chase is probably 3rd on this list. You know, Devontae Adams probably 3rd or 4th on this list. Both of them had down seasons last year. Hence, guys like Amon-Ra St. Brown, who had ridiculous seasons last year, along with CeeDee Lamb, skyrocket up. Those guys come down. They're still top 10 receivers, top 7 receivers. You can put them where you want, but Devontae Adams is currently 6th on this list. Chase is 7th. Stephon Diggs is 8. Brandon Ayuk is 9. Mike Evans is 10. So that rounds out your top 10. Okay. Amari Cooper is 11th. Keenan Allen is 12th. DJ Moore is 13th. DeAndre Hopkins is 14th. And then Terry McLaurin finds himself on this list as the 15th best receiver in the NFL. So I want to make one point to you. Do you guys remember? If you remember, put the name down in the comment section. Do you guys remember the name that I said, hey, we should be comparing Terry to this player right here? Do you remember the name that I dropped 2 days ago? If you remember the name, put it down in the comment section right now. I'll give you a second. So let's see who was listening the last couple of days. Tommy T says DJ Moore. Scratch More Fortune says Diggs. I don't know, Diggs. Robert Payne says Diggs. Big Mike says DJ Moore. Rich says DJ Moore. Bradley Campbell says Diggs. Eric Sunderland says Metcalf, LOL. Who the hell is Bilal Muhammad? St. Brown, if you said DJ Moore, you would be correct. I said Terry McLaurin should be in the discussion with DJ Moore. Do you see where DJ Moore is? Do you see what DJ Moore's ranking is on Madden? Okay, it's not a coincidence. Did you see the money DJ Moore just got the other day? DJ Moore signed his extension the same year. If you remember that same offseason, all of those 2019 receivers got paid in that same offseason. It was DJ Moore. It was Terry McLaurin. It was Metcalf. It was AJ Brown. They all got paid that offseason. DJ Moore just got a fat ass 4-year, $110 or $11 million extension with 82 of it fully guaranteed. You know they could do that for Terry right now if they wanted to. But they don't. You know why they don't want to do that for Terry? Because he didn't just put up the kind of numbers DJ Moore just put up last year. And don't talk to me about the court. DJ Moore has played with some ass quarterbacks, including catching passes last year from Tyson Bagent, of all people, last season. Okay, so miss me with the DJ Moore's played with who? Justin Fields? Who's DJ Moore played with outside of Cam Newton? And he didn't get prime 2015 Super Bowl run Cam Newton, MVP Cam Newton. He got back into the career, shoulder hanging on by a thread, Cam Newton. He's played with just as many ass quarterbacks as Terry, and he's putting up numbers. When's the last time you seen Terry? And this is not to shit on Terry because I think Terry's a phenomenal receiver. When's the last time you saw Terry put up a 200-yard game in his career? Question. Has Terry ever put up? I don't even know the answer to this. This is actually a good exercise. Someone go out there and find this information for me. Has Terry McLaurin in his 5-year career posted a 200-yard performance ever? Please let me know in the comment section. I'm waiting for that information because I watched DJ Moore come into Washington and put up 230 and 3 tuds on our skulls and made it look like easy work. If you're playing against garbage secondaries, cook their ass. If you're playing against clueless coaches who don't understand that you are a stud and a G, cook their ass. Terry's gotten one-on-one. Now, granted, Terry's also played on an offense that's been limited. I'm showing you the list of receivers who are opposite of Terry McLaurin. Not that DJ Moore's played with stud receivers opposite of him. Has Terry put up a 200-yard? Has he had a 2-bill game yet? Anybody? Because I think the answer is no. And I'm playing back all of his biggest performances. A lot of them came in his rookie season, by the way. And I can't remember a single game. He should have had 200 against the Eagles in his very first game. If Case Keenum wasn't ass, he would have had 200 in that game. I don't recall a 200-yard game. No, Louie, he has never had a 200-yard game. So you can't put Terry in that conversation. And I don't want to hear about the quarterbacks because a lot of these dudes that have posted 200-yard games, some of them have posted 200-yard games with some mid quarterbacks. Mike Evans played with every quarterback under the sun, from Jameis Winston to Ryan Fitzpatrick to Baker Mayfield, and there was a Tom Brady in there too. But he's played with all these dudes, and he always manages to find a way. All right. Jamar Chase played with the UW quarterback last year. What's it? Jake Browning. Okay. Yes, I know that Joe Burrow is his starting quarterback. I'm fully aware. Okay. But he's caught passes from some bums too. All right. Devontae Adams, we don't even know who his quarterback's going to be this year. The shit he put up with last year, and I get it, he had Aaron Rodgers for a lot of years. I'm aware. He had some trash at quarterback his first year in Vegas. Straight garbage juice. And again, a lot of it was Derek Carr. But remember, they benched Derek Carr. He got hurt. They benched his ass. And he was catching passes from all kinds of guys. That man had like 1,500 yards 2 years ago in Vegas, his first year. All right. We can go up and down this list. Like, most of these guys have established veteran quarterbacks who can play the position. I'm aware. Okay. Fully aware. I'm just telling you, it doesn't matter who's throwing you the football. If you that guy, you're going to find a way to eat regardless. Regardless. So, Terry's been more consistent than a number of guys on this list. But there's two things that you have to take into consideration. There's consistency and then there's upside, right? And you have to be able to decipher between the two. Consistency is really good. It's great to have consistency because you know what you're getting. No matter what the quarterback situation is, no matter what the offensive line situation is, no matter what the coaching staff is out here doing, consistency means this guy's still going to produce no matter what. That's a great trait to have. No matter what, I know you're going to give me 70 catches and 1,000 yards, no matter what the circumstances. There's only a select few guys that can say, yeah, I'm doing that every year, no matter what. One, you have to be available to post those types of numbers. There are guys on this list that we're looking at right now that they're not going to play 15, 16, 17 games. Terry generally plays all 17 games. He doesn't miss very many games, knock on wood. It's a number of guys on this list that if they had to deal with what Terry's had to deal with, they might not be in the position that they're in right now. I'm fully aware of that as well. But there are guys on this list that are of much higher quality than Terry McLaurin. If they're at their best and Terry's at their best, Terry's not close. And that's a fact. Okay? That's a fact. But when you look at this list, let's just go down the list. We can place Terry somewhere within the top 15 of the NFL at the receiver position. Let's go through the list and see where we think Terry goes. And we can factor in things like body of work, age, trajectory of career, because some guys on this list, they're probably on this list based off of the body of work. But you look at some of these dudes' numbers, like a Keenan Allen, for instance. Keenan Allen should be theoretically in the twilight of his career. Keenan Allen is north of 30. He's dealt with injuries. He just got traded from the Chargers. Theoretically speaking, he should not be ahead of Terry McLaurin. Go look at the season Keenan Allen turned in last year for the Los Angeles Chargers. I haven't looked at it, but I know he posted some cartoonish numbers, and he didn't even play probably but 13, 14 games. I bet you he was over 100 catches and probably over 1,300 yards receiving. That's my guess. I haven't looked at his numbers. I just know he was putting in work last year because there was no Mike Williams. There was nobody else. Teams knew Keenan Allen was getting the ball, and he still ate. He has a quarterback. I'm aware. Anyway, let's go through this list real quick and see where Terry is. So we're staring at the top 15, according to Madden, the top 15 receivers in the NFL. Let's see where Terry McLaurin ranks. He's not better than Tyreek Hill. He's not better than Justin Jefferson. He's not better than CeeDee Lamb. He's not better than A.J. Brown. That's 4. He's not better than Amon-Ra St. Brown, although I think he could be better than Amon-Ra St. Brown. I do think he could be better than Amon-Ra St. Brown, but he's not better than him right now. And the trajectory of Amon-Ra St. Brown's career, Amon-Ra St. Brown had over 1,500 yards receiving and over 100 catches last year. Terry has never even been remotely close. I don't know how many touchdowns Amon-Ra St. Brown had last year. Terry has never had a 10-touchdown season in his career. If I'm not mistaken, the most touchdowns Terry's ever had in his career was 7, and that came in his rookie season. So again, he's not on Amon-Ra St. Brown's level right now. He's not better than Devontae Adams. He's not better than Jamar Chase. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So we're now at number 8. Is Terry McLaurin better than Stephon Diggs? No. Okay. Now, Stephon Diggs did not have a great season by his standards last year. This is why he got traded to the Houston Texans. He was becoming a bit of a headache, and the headache wasn't worth the production, so they moved him. He's reinvigorated. He's in a new location. If he doesn't post big numbers this year, I could see and make a case for Terry being better than Stephon Diggs. He's not right now. Okay. Brandon Ayuk. He had a really good season last year. I honestly believe Terry McLaurin is better than Brandon Ayuk. I can't speak for any of you. Brandon Ayuk is cool. He blocks. He's a really good receiver. He's not better than Terry McLaurin to me. If Brandon Ayuk were on this team, he's not the number 1A. He's the number 1B behind Terry. I think there's this misconception. Oh, you get Brandon Ayuk, he'll be the best receiver on your team. Bullshit. The hell he will. Terry's better than Brandon Ayuk. Now, did Brandon Ayuk have a better season than Terry last year? Hence the 91 rating. If I'm not mistaken, Terry had a 92 last year. This is how these things work. I'm not really tripping over the rating as much as who's better. You watched Brandon Ayuk. I've watched Brandon Ayuk. You've watched Terry McLaurin. I've watched Terry McLaurin. Terry McLaurin's better than Brandon Ayuk. To me. To my eyes, he's better. So I wouldn't put Brandon Ayuk ahead of Terry McLaurin. So we're still at 8. So we're at 9. Ayuk is not better. Mike Evans, body of work and consistency better than Terry McLaurin. So we're now at 9. That's 9 receivers. We're at 10. Okay. I'm taking Ayuk and I'm sliding him behind Terry. Okay. Amari Cooper. That's an interesting one. Matter of fact, let's go see what Amari Cooper's numbers were. He's dealt with some injuries over the last couple of years. He's still, when he plays, he's a problem, but Amari Cooper could go missing on you, and you could put Amari Cooper on a milk carton real quick. Let's see. Damn, and I say that bullshit, and that man had 72 catches for 1,250 yards and 5 touchdowns. Lord knows he caught passes from about 7 different quarterbacks last year. So I don't want to hear the whole, well, Terry's never played with a receiver. Name another receiver on the Cleveland Browns. I'll wait. Name another receiver on the Cleveland Browns. I can. Many of you can't. Go ahead and cheat and type it in and look it up. You want to go through the quarterbacks that he caught passes from last year to acquire that 1,250 yards? Because it damn sure wasn't Deshaun Watson for most of the season. It wasn't Joe Flacco for the whole season either. He was catching passes from Dorian Thompson-Robinson and PJ Walker. Yeah, that's the shit he was doing, and he still put up big numbers. So, again, a lot of y'all want to make excuses for Terry. I'm just not trying to hear the shit, personally. I know what Terry has had to endure, which is why I know how good he is. But if you that guy, you're going to still put up numbers regardless of who's throwing you the football and who's opposite of you and all of that good stuff. Amari Cooper's better than Terry McLaurin. So we're now at 10 guys ahead of Terry at 11. Keenan Allen. Whew. Keenan Allen has had injuries. He's been inconsistent at times, but when Keenan Allen is locked in, and he's got one of those games, like he's one of those, if we were making the NBA analogy, he's got one of them old man games that's going to age well and allow him to play well into his 30s, damn near 40 years old. Keenan Allen will, because his game was never based nor predicated on speed. It was always based on nuance and the ability to separate and get open. He can do that for the next 4-5 years. How old is Keenan Allen? I mean, I don't even need to see what numbers he put up last year. Let's just see how old he is. Because I know Keenan Allen had over 100 and had probably 1,300 receiving. Keenan Allen on a bad football team that was poorly coached last season. He is 32 years old. It's Keenan Allen. Keenan had 108 for 1,243 last year and 7 tubs. But the year before, dealt with injuries, 66 for 752. The year before that, 106 for 1,138 and 6 touchdowns. The year before that, 100 catches, but failed to get 1,000 yards at 992. This is the lack of consistency I'm talking about. But there's still 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, including last season, 1,000-yard seasons. And last year, at age 31, he posted his second best season of his NFL career from a statistical standpoint. Most catches in his career, second most yards, and the second most touchdowns he had in his career all last year. So he's still playing at a very high level. I'll let Keenan Allen slide because he's a really good receiver and he's been consistent and he's still playing at a high level. DJ Moore. That's an interesting one, boy, because before last year, I would have told you Terry's way better than DJ Moore. They're in the same category, but Terry's a cut above. DJ put in some work last year, man. And DJ's been putting in work the last 3 years or so. Let's look at DJ. He got off to a slow start in his career. I do know that because when he came out of Maryland, he was not a real receiver. Like he was a get the ball in his hands by any means necessary type of player. Tyreek Hill was the same way. And Tyreek Hill made himself into the receiver that he is. I told you, I've never seen Tyreek Hill is the equivalent of Kawhi Leonard. Kawhi Leonard came into the NBA. He couldn't shoot. He barely could dribble, and he definitely wasn't knocking down threes. There was no midi, none of that shit. He came in, extremely long arms, hell of a defender, and that was pretty much it. And he built himself from the ground up into the player that he became. Same thing with Tyreek Hill. He came into the league fast as shit, quick as all get out, but he didn't have a receiving bone in his body at the time. And he made himself into one of the best receivers in the NFL, if not the best. DJ Moore did practically the same thing. He came into the NFL as a bubble screen, tunnel screen, slant, drag route type guy. Just get it to him, get it in his hands, and he'll turn into a running back with the ball in his hands and do the rest. He's a legit receiver now. Let's check out DJ Moore the last, let's say 3 years. He was ridiculous last year, which is why he got the contract. So much like Terry, he has not had a lot of touchdowns in his career. 8 was his career high, is his career high, and he posted that last year. Last year, he went off. Career highs across the board. 96 catches, 1,364 yards, and 8 touchdowns. All of these numbers are higher than any numbers Terry McLaurin has posted in his career. And I just told you he was catching passes from Tyson Bagent and Justin Fields, among others, last season. So don't talk to me about the quarterbacks he's playing with. And, oh, by the way, who the hell was opposite of him in Chicago last year anyway? Which is why they drafted Rome Odunze and traded for Keenan Allen, because they didn't have anybody opposite of DJ Moore. They had a tight end and DJ Moore, and that was it. So, again, all the excuses that people love to use for Terry, you can't always use those because other guys have similar situations and they find a way. He had 888 yards the year before. So he doesn't quite have but before that, 3 consecutive years of over 1,150 yards. Okay. So I get that Terry has been more consistent, but right now the upside lies with DJ Moore. The upside lies with DJ Moore. And he's younger. He's 27 years old. I think Terry's 28, if I'm not mistaken. Let me make sure that's accurate. Terry might be 27, about to turn 28. I think he's 28 already. But I always say this about Terry. Yeah, he's 28. Terry is a young 28 because there wasn't as much tread off the tires in college. So I mean, Terry's best season was in 2022, 77 catches, 1,191, and 5 touchdowns. If you go back to DJ Moore, 1,191 is his. It would be DJ Moore's 3rd best season of his career. He's got 2 seasons better than that, and that's Terry's best season. And here's the knock on Terry McLaurin as we get back to Terry. One of the knocks on Terry, where a guy like DJ Moore excels and a lot of the guys ahead of him on this list excel, is the run after catch. Terry and he's been adamant that he wants to get better at that this season, because he knows in order to take it to the next level, you got to be able to take a 6-yard pass and turn it into a 36-yard gain, or a 16-yard gain and turn it into a 56-yard touchdown. Terry just hasn't been able to do that really since his rookie season. He really just hasn't been able to do that. And some of that is the fault of the coaching staff for not putting him in positions. But Terry's not a make you miss type of guy. You know, he can run through arm tackles and things of that nature. I'd put DJ Moore ahead of him. So that would give us, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 guys ahead of him. Let me see what DeAndre Hopkins did last year. I don't give a shit what he did last year. I'm not putting him ahead of Terry. I'm sorry. I think he's the best of DeAndre. Now, DeAndre Hopkins in his prime is not even close, but at this point of his career, I think we've seen the best of DeAndre Hopkins. He barely got over 1,000, just like Terry did last year. The 2 years prior to that, the man wasn't even close to 1,000, dealt with injuries. But at his peak, Terry's not even close to him. At one point, DeAndre Hopkins was the best receiver in football. We'll never, ever utter the words, Terry McLaurin is the best receiver in football. So you don't have to worry about that. Now, I'm not saying that Terry, if we're putting both of them in their primes, DeAndre Hopkins is, Terry McLaurin is better than DeAndre Hopkins. I'm talking about right now. Give me Terry McLaurin over DeAndre Hopkins at this point. DeAndre Hopkins is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. He's going into year 12. Ain't no way I'm putting DeAndre Hopkins ahead of Terry McLaurin. Granted, he dealt with the same shit Terry dealt with last year, and he still posted 75 catches, 1,057 yards, and 7 touchdowns. He played with a rookie, which is essentially what Terry played with last year. And he played with multiple quarterbacks, which is what Terry did last year. But I'm not putting him ahead of Terry. Sorry, not doing it. So that would put Terry 13th in the league by my estimation. By my estimation. Because I'm putting Ayuk and DeAndre Hopkins behind Terry and moving him up the list 2 spots. Anybody want to disagree with that? I'd love to hear your argument as to why you would put Terry higher than 13th. That's right around where I said I think he should be. Somewhere in that 12 to 15 range. 12 to 14, I think, is the number that I kept saying, is where you start having the Terry McLaurin discussion, and he lands at 13. Perfect. Right where I think he probably ultimately is in the league. Okay? Let's move on to another position. All right? So let's look at the Commanders' defensive tackles. Shout out to Mason Kinahan again for lining all of these up for us. Jonathan Allen is at 89. Deron Payne is not an 87. So we're gonna take a look at that in a little bit, but he is not at 87. Johnny Newton 75. F.A. Obata 69. We don't need the rest of these guys' ratings because all we care about is the top 2. Payne is not at 87. I think he's at 83, 82, 83, something like that. Anyway, let's take a look at where Jonathan Allen ranks among defensive tackles and Deron Payne for that matter. So as you can see, Payne is at 83, not an 87. So that was a little off, but nonetheless, Chris Jones is the #1 defensive tackle. I don't with Aaron Donald retiring, the torch has been passed to Chris Jones. I don't think anybody's arguing that. He's #1. I struggle with this Dexter Lawrence love. Am I missing something here? I know he's good. I'm not denying that he's good. I know he's a load to deal with in the run game. I know he's capable of getting loose and getting back there to the quarterback. But is he really the second best defensive tackle in the NFL? Because a lot of people this man has been an all-pro before. None of our guys have. I guarantee you Dexter Lawrence has never had a double-digit sack. And not that sacks are the end-all, be-all. Because when you play on the other side of the line of scrimmage, when you take up 2 defenders and you still wreak havoc, which is what Dexter Lawrence does, and you can still get to the quarterback, you're a problem. But you also need to post numbers, too. I don't want to hear about pressures. If pressures were the key to the game, we would have been one of the best defenses over the last decade with guys like Preston Smith, who was a pressure monster, right? One of the best pressure guys in the business when he was in Washington. Never got to the quarterback. But boy, did he get another pressure. Same for Montez Sweat. Oh, he was among the league leaders in pressures. Still only had 7.5 sacks, though. Let me look up Dexter Lawrence's numbers. I know he's good, and I'm not trying to shit on him. I feel like he's overrated to me a bit, and I could be tripping. The highest this man has in terms of sack total is 7.5. I just don't feel it. And 4.5, 4, 2.5, 2.5. And it's not just sacks. I'm aware of a defensive tackle's presence and other things that defensive tackles do to impact the game. Stats don't always bear that out. And I know he's a force up front, and he's a guy that gets on the other side of the line of scrimmage, a guy that takes two, a guy that destroys pockets. I know what he does. But that should also come with more numbers, guys. If we're making these, you are all pro with the level of players around this league who post numbers. Like, I don't want to hear about a guy that's dominating and then getting 4.5 sacks. That's the shit Daron Payne does that drives me nuts. Anyway, I just feel like he's overrated, and it could just be me. I don't think he's the second best defensive tackle in football. I put Quentin Williams ahead of him. Same with Vita Vea. I know the impact. I know what he might be the best run stopping defensive tackle in football. You can't run at Vita Vea. That'd be stupid to even try. I'm fully aware. But another one of these dudes where my guess is sack-wise, he doesn't have more than a 6.5 sack season under his belt. Let's see. Damn, I'm good. In 2022, his career high in sacks, 6.5. He's had last year, he had 5.5. I mean, those are good numbers for a guy like Vita Vea, who is a run stuffer at his core. If you tell me Vita Vea is gonna give me 6.5, 5.5 sacks, coupled with what he does in the run game, that's Pro Bowl player type stuff, right? 4, 2, 2.5, and 3 other numbers in his career. He's got a career 23.5 sacks. Dexter Lawrence, and that's in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 seasons. He's got 23.5 sacks. So roughly, he's averaging 6 sacks a season. Or excuse me, 4 sacks a season. Roughly 4 sacks a season. Dexter Lawrence in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 seasons has 21 sacks total. So roughly he's averaging just a shade over 4 sacks a season. Like, these aren't numbers that move the needle. And again, I'm aware of what they do in other aspects of the game, which is why they're good football players. Are they elite? Are they better than some of these other guys on the list? Nah, man. I don't buy it, right? Quentin Williams, I put Quentin Williams ahead of all of these dudes, if you ask me. But Quentin Williams had a massive sack season 2 years ago when Daron Payne had his. Let's see if Quentin followed it up last year with another good season, or did he fall off the map like Daron did? All right. Quentin Williams, he had a down year last year. He got double teamed a lot though, like legitimately double teamed. Not this shit that we were talking about with Allen and Payne, where they were getting singled up and they just won't win in those one-on-one matchups. He was getting double and triple teamed last year. He had 12 sacks in 2022, 6 the year before that, 7 the year before that. So there's a bit of consistency here. In 5 years, he's got 33 sacks. So you're talking essentially just a shade over 7 sacks, a shade under 7 sacks a season. So 6 and some change a year. Let's call it 6.5 sacks per year is what he's averaging right now, which is really good. But we know he's capable of more, right? Where these other guys may be a little bit better is in the run game. Like Dexter Lawrence is better in the run game than Quentin Williams. So is Vita Vea. But getting to the quarterback, he's better than those guys, clearly. And then there's our guy, Jonathan Allen, who is an 89. He and Terry McLaurin, if I'm not mistaken, are the 2 highest rated players on the team at 89. If I'm not mistaken, I think Terry's at 89. He could be at 88. I think he is at 89, though. So Allen is ranked 5th overall amongst defensive tackles, all right, in the league. And Allen has been in the league longer than all these guys outside of Chris Jones for the most part. I think DeForest Buckner might be the same draft as Jonathan Allen, maybe. But a lot of these guys are younger than Jonathan Allen. Allen, I think at this point of his career, has 39 sacks, I believe. He has a chance. I think he and Daron Payne have a chance to eclipse 40 this year. Payne's going to have to get on his giddy up. He's going to have to get on his horse to do it. I think he's only at 31. Allen is at 39, I believe. But when you look at Jonathan Allen, 5th best, not bad. And I want to have this discussion with you guys right now. So, of the two, Jonathan Allen or Daron Payne, you can see what Madden thinks of Allen and Payne. The league feels the same exact way. Payne was not listed as a top 100 player, and I don't think he deserved to be after his season last year. Meanwhile, Allen was 54th on the list. Of the two guys, who's better? Because I think a number of you guys are influenced by me. Because of the two, Payne has the higher upside. But I just had this conversation about Terry McLaurin, right? Terry McLaurin is the equivalent of Jonathan Allen in that he's consistent. I know what I'm getting from Jonathan Allen. I'm getting anywhere from 6 to 8.5, 9 sacks. I'm going to get relentless pursuit of the football up front. I'm going to get consistent play. Not going to miss very many games. Going to tough through injuries if he sustains one. And he's going to be present and accounted for. And I know what I'm getting, right? But at his best and at Daron's best, Daron is the superior talent. That has been showcased by Daron Payne's 11.5 sack season, where he was not only a menace for quarterbacks, the man was among the league leaders in tackles for loss, quarterback pressures. Every statistical, category you could think of, Daron Payne was among the top that year for defensive tackles. I think he was 3rd in sacks among defensive tackles that year, tied for 1st among tackles for loss among defensive tackles that year, or he might have been 1st, tied for 1st in the league from a defensive line standpoint with a defensive end, if I'm not mistaken. So he killed it that year. Allen has never had a season like that. But Allen is consistent. Which of the two is better to you? I see some of y'all saying, I see Rich said it's John Allen, and to me, and it's not that close. It's hard to argue that Jonathan Allen isn't the better of the two from a consistency standpoint. That's why this rating is what it is. Because neither one of them were great last year, but Allen was the more consistent of the two last year in a down year. His down year looks a lot better than a down year for Daron Payne. And that's the difference. The floor for Allen is a lot higher. The floor for Daron Payne is a lot lower, but the ceiling for Daron Payne is a lot higher than it is for Jonathan Allen. And that's what I base mine off of, is that Payne, it's not like Payne isn't out here putting in work. He's just as durable as Jonathan Allen is, if not more so durable, right? Knock on a little bit of wood. He can be more dominant than him. And then what was interesting is I was looking at the stats that make up the overall rating, right? They didn't have every single stat, on the screen that I was looking at. And they had about 7 or 8 stats. speed, agility, strength, injury. These were all the things that I was looking at that were on the screen. Like I said, 6, 7, 8 different categories. Deron Payne was higher in numerical value in every one of those statistical categories than Jonathan Allen. In my mind, I'm saying, how does he have a higher overall if he has lower numbers in every one of these statistics across the board? Deron Payne had higher numbers than he did. There wasn't a single one. Now, there were probably, I haven't played Madden in over 2 decades. So I'm pretty sure, I'm lying, I haven't played Madden in almost 2 decades. When I used to play Madden, it was like 20 categories that made up your overall, that you would just scroll down, all kinds of shit. And I'm pretty sure they've added more categories over the years. So those, 6 or 7 categories that I saw aren't the end all be all, but they were the first ones that mattered. That's why they were on the screen. And Deron Payne's were higher across the board. Every single one. I looked at every single one. I was like, in my mind, I'm looking at the category and I'm like, Deron's better than him at this. Let me see what they say. He was. The next category. I said, Deron's better than him at this. I looked. He was. Next category. I said, Deron's better than him at that. Look, he was. Next category. Deron's better than him at that. And he was. I'm like, well, how's he at 83 and he's at 89? All right. But it's about production. It's about the consist. If we were looking at this list this time last year, Deron Payne is where Jonathan Allen is, and Jonathan Allen, I won't say he's where Deron Payne is. He'd probably be somewhere around where Kenny Clark is, DJ Reader, right? So I think Jonathan Allen. Are you comfortable with the 4 guys ahead of him? Let me ask you that. Are you comfortable with the 2 or 3 guys below him? Christian Wilkins, DeForest Buckner, Kenny Clark. DeForest Buckner 3 years ago was better than Jonathan Allen. He's not anymore. Christian Wilkins is not better than Jonathan Allen. Christian Wilkins, to me, is not better than Deron Payne. Let me look at Christian Wilkins' numbers. I say that, and this man probably had 9.5 sacks last year. And the year before that, he probably had 8.5 sacks. Who am I looking up? Christian Wilkins. The fact that the Dolphins was like, yeah, we good on Christian Wilkins, that shit tells me a lot. What'd I say? He had 9 sacks last year. But guess what? The year before that, 3.5. The year before that, 4.5. The year before that, 1.5. The year before that, 2. He's got 20.5 sacks in his career, and half of them roughly came last season. So the Dolphins was like, yeah, that was really good, but you inconsistent as hell. We don't trust you. That was a contract year spike. You ain't really about that life. We'll see. He got a big bag to go to the Vegas Raiders. We'll see if he does it again there. He's not better than Deron Payne or Jonathan Allen, to be honest with you. He had 9 sacks last year. That's why he's higher than him on this list. I don't give a shit about that. He ain't better than Deron Payne to me. Sorry, not sorry. And let me go back and look at his stat. In 5 years, he's got 20.5 sacks. Let's look up Deron Payne, because I'm pretty confident Deron has 31 sacks. I could be off by a sack or 2. Deron has 30 sacks in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 seasons. So in 1 extra year, he's got 10 more sacks essentially than Christian Wilkins. Now, that 11.5 sack season sticks out like a sore thumb. It's an anomaly when you look at his career. 5 in his rookie season, 2 the year after that, 3 the year after that, 4.5 in 2021, and then that crazy 11.5 sack season, and then 4 sacks last year. I need him to get to no worse than 8 sacks this year for me to be like, that 2022 season wasn't a contract year spike. And I think it will. jump this year, to be honest with you. I know what he's capable of because he's shown me. Now I need to see it again. But he's got 30 career sacks. So roughly right now, in 6 years, 30 sacks, 5 a season is what he's averaging. We know he can be a lot better than that. So he's got to prove it, though. He's got to prove it. But I'm not putting Christian Wilkins ahead of him. I'm not putting DeForest Buckner ahead of him right now. What did DeForest do? I bet you DeForest had 6 sacks last year. He was not, and again, at his peak, it's not even a conversation. He's better than Jonathan Allen, too, at his peak, but he's not that guy anymore. I don't think. He had 8 last year, 8 the year before that, 7, 9.5, 7.5, 12. Yeah, nah, he's still playing at a high level. Let me cut that shit out right now. He's better. You could argue he's probably better than Jonathan Allen right now because he's really good against the run too, is DeForest Buckner. I would take out, I don't think Vita Vea is better than Jonathan Allen, personally. But I would put DeForest Buckner ahead of both of them. Kenny Clark has posted some stupid numbers here of late. Let me check him out. He's one of them dudes who's gotten better and better and better and better as the years have gone on. Kenny Clark has just gotten better and better to the point where you're like, all right, let me shut my face. So Kenny is getting up there though. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. He's going into year 9. And he's only got 34 career sacks in 9 seasons. Jonathan Allen, once again, let me get to Jonathan Allen. Let me get to JA real quick so I can compare the two back and forth. JA is going into year 7, I believe. 8, excuse me. 8 should be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Wait. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay. Because he was drafted 1 year before Payne. Payne's going into year 7. He should be going into year 8. 39 sacks, as I mentioned, for Jonathan Allen in 7 seasons. So you're talking about just a shade under 6, closer to 6 than 5 sacks a season. 5.5 last year, that's a down year for him. 7.5, 2022, 9 which is a career high for him in 2021, 2 sacks in 2020, which was a weird year because everybody around him was eating that year. I know he was dealing with some injuries and things, but everybody around him was eating that year. That was Chase Young's rookie season. Montez Sweat was playing well. Everybody was eating, and he just kind of was in the back, so to speak. 6 the year before that in 19, 8 in 2018, and 1. Remember, he was really banged up his rookie season, really injured. And so if he played his rookie season, he'd be in the 40s right now from a sack perspective. It's that level of consistency right there is why he's the better of the two between he and Duran. Because in most seasons, he's going to get you at least 6 sacks. I told you the number for him is anywhere from 6 to 8.5, 9, which is where he's kind of fallen throughout his career, 6 to 8.5 or 9. He hasn't hit that double-digit threshold, and I think that's the glass ceiling that we put on him, or I put on him. But if he can break through, you could argue that he is one of the best defensive tackles in the league. You know who is very, very noticeably absent? Can you guys tell me the one guy that you don't see here that should be on this list? This is a Madden thing, by the way. Let me see how many of y'all can think quick on your feet. Give me one name that is noticeably absent from this list and that I vehemently disagree with. Rich. Whatever you smoking, Rich, let me get some of that. Dalvin Tomlinson? What? Is he even in the league anymore? Dalvin Tomlinson? No, Dalvin Tomlinson has never been on a list that looks like this before in his life. No. Good guess, though. That's me being nice. Clearly, you're just as confused. Not as me. I'm the one telling you he's not on the list. I just thought of it looking at the list as I'm going through it. Thank you. Big Jeff Simmons is not on this list. How? I don't know. Clearly, him calling Buck Rising a pussy might have pissed off the Madden people to the extent of him not being listed on the top. What are we looking? 15? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Top 15 defensive. Are you kidding me? Big Jeff Simmons not in the top 15. Okay. Sure, you're right. I don't know what kind of a season he turned in last year. And I don't think Jeffrey Simmons has had a double-digit sack season, just for the record. But similar to Vita Vea and some of these other guys that are just dominant forces up front, what are we talking about? See what he's done to this point. He's been in the league 5 years. He had 2 sacks last year. That's why they didn't put him on the list. He had 2 sacks last year and 3 the year before that. But the 3 years prior to that, 8.5, 7.5, 5.5. So the last 2 years, he's been had 2 down seasons. Or excuse me, I'm going in the wrong direction. Those were his first 2 seasons in the league. 5.5 sacks last year, 7.5 the year before, 8.5 in 2021. So he had 5.5 sacks last year. Why he's not on the list behooves me. Okay. This guy is one of the top 7 defensive tackles in football, if not top 5. I think most people would put him in the top 5. I probably would too. He's better than Vita Vea. I personally think he's better than Dexter Lawrence. I think Dexter Lawrence is overrated. I've already told you that. I think Jonathan Allen is better than Dexter Lawrence. I think Daron Payne, when he plays up to his full expectations, is better than Dexter Lawrence. But that's just me. You can call me biased if you want. So here's how I look at this, right? Chris Jones is where he's supposed to be. I would take I think I would put Quinnen Williams second, Jeff Simmons third, DeForest Buckner fourth. I think I keep Allen where he is at 5. I think I'd slide Dexter Lawrence behind him at 6, Vita Vea behind him at 7. And then you can start filling in the blanks with the rest of these dudes, wherever you want. Daron has to be more consistent. That's going to kill him every time. When we have these types of discussions, when we look at these types of lists, what's going to kill him every time is the lack of consistency. Man had 4 sacks last year. Again, fully capable. But he's got to be more consistent. Some of these dudes, I love me some Grover Stewart. Is he better than Daron Payne? Is he better than Javon Hargrave? I don't know what kind of season Javon Hargrave. He probably was disappointed last year after what he did in Philadelphia. He probably didn't live up to the hype. I don't even see Justin Matabike up here, who put in a crazy season. You would have thought Madden would have went nuts. That man had like 12.5 sacks last year. You would think Madden would have went nuts and put him as the third best defensive tackle. He's not even on the list. You know what I'm saying? So maybe Madden sees Justin Madubuike as a defensive end or something. I don't know. Ravens play a 3-4. Maybe they had him as a defensive end or something. I don't know, because that doesn't make any sense to me. But anyway, I digress. Just know that to me, looking at this list, both of our defensive tackles are in the top 10 in the NFL, if you ask me, of defensive tackles. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Big Jeff Simmons, Justin Madubuike has entered the chat. And I need to see him do it again, by the way. Let me see what Justin Madubuike was doing prior to his breakout season last year. But, I mean, you put up them kind of numbers, you got my attention. You put up them type of numbers, you got my attention. And he had 13 sacks last year, and he had 5.5 the year before that. So the 13 wasn't a fluke. It ain't like he jumped from 2 to 13. He went from 2 to 5.5 to 13. So it was a progression. Let me see if he can do it again. Madubuike got to be in this discussion. So Madubuike would be in here. And then let me see what Cam Hayward is saying, because, man, he's up there in age, though, buddy. Boy, he's up there in age. Long in the tooth. But he's still good. How good is the question? So, shit. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. This man is going into year 14. Prior to last year, he had 2 sacks last year. 2. A whole entire 2 sacks. Prior to last year, the man had double-digit sacks in back-to-back seasons, 10.5 and 10. I gotta think that he's starting to hit the twilight. I mean, he's at the twilight of his career. I gotta think. Last year, probably dealt with some injuries, is my guess, which is why the numbers were as low as they were. But he's also old. Man's 35 years old. I gotta think that Father Time is starting to tap him on the shoulder. Hey, man, it's getting pretty late, bro. It's really good. I'd say Duran is either at 10 or 11. Jonathan Allen is right around 5 or 6. I feel good about that. I feel really good about that. Leonard Williams. I just saw somebody put Leonard Williams. I'm not a Leonard Williams guy. He kind of reminds me a lot of Daron Payne in the sense that he's somewhat of an enigma. Like when he plays, boy, he's good. But this man, look at some of these. Look at some of these seasons, bro. 0 sacks, a half a sack, 1.5 sacks. So 2.5 sacks in 2022. Last year he had 5.5, 1.5 with the Giants, 4 with the Seahawks. Like he had, but similar to Duran, he had an 11.5 sack season, and that's the kind of shit that he tantalizes you with. That he's had a 7 and an 11.5 and a 6.5, so that makes you think, hey, it's something to it. But he's super inconsistent, and I'll take it a step further. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Well, okay. Let me not count the same season twice. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Man's going into year 11. He's been in the league 10 years and he's got 43.5 sacks. That's 4.5 sacks roughly per season. Like he's not higher than a lot of the dudes that's on the list. He should be on this list though. But he's not higher than like a Daron Payne. I'm not putting him ahead of Daron Payne. So Somebody said Calais. That's another good one. Even though, much like Cam Hayward, dude probably like 800 years old, but he's still putting up numbers. Let's look at Calais. Calais is 12. He going into year 17 in the league. Zoinks! 6.5 last year, 5.5 the year before that, 1.5 the year prior to that. He hasn't had double-digit sacks since 2018 and 17, where he had 14.5 one year and 10.5 back-to-back years. So he's again at his peak. He it's not even a discussion, but the man's going to be 38 years old this year. It's hard for me to put him ahead of a lot of these dudes on the list, but he's still really good. He should be on this list. I'll say that. I bet you he's better than Michael Pierce and Grover Stewart and guys like that. And I like Grover Stewart in particular. But I don't know. Maybe Madden meant to put Justin Madubuike in the place of Michael Pierce. It's hard for me to believe Michael Pierce is that good. I remember him early in his career in Minnesota. I don't really think he's done much since he's gotten to Baltimore because he's been injured, but he's a run stuffing defensive tackle. He's got 7.5 sacks in his career. Like, he's a specialty guy. The best sack season of his career came that 1 year in Minnesota. That's the year I remember him. Really hasn't done much from a sack perspective in Baltimore. He was hurt in 2022. I think they meant to put Justin Madubuike in his spot, honestly. I think that's who that's supposed to be, but whatever. Long story short, Allen is a top 5, 6 defensive tackle in the league, in my estimation. Deron Payne is a top 10, 11, somewhere in that neighborhood. When Payne plays at his peak, he's top 5 rated along in that neighborhood with Jonathan Allen and the rest of these dudes. But the consistency hasn't been there. I need to see it. Like, I'm putting a lot of pressure on Deron this year. I need to see it, man. I need to see it. I really do. All right. Last couple of things, and then we'll get to the comment section, and I'll get you guys out of here. These are the guards in the NFL. This is the last player that we feel like is like homegrown product, right? All the guys we've talked about tonight are homegrown product. I'm not talking about guys that have just visited, that just came in for a cup of tea, like Bobby Wagner or Zach Ertz or some of those guys. No. I'm talking about homegrown product, guys that we watch grow up from puppies to the players that they've become. Terry, John, Deron, and now Sam Cosmi. This is a list of the top guards in the NFL according to Madden. Now, again, take it for what it's worth and a grain of salt, and understand that it is Madden. But Sam Cosmi is building a very good resume and a lot of traction around league circles for his play. He was really good last year. If he does it again, he's going to end up in the Pro Bowl. And once you get to the Pro Bowl once as an offensive lineman, they just start putting you in the Pro Bowl, even if you're not playing as well. If they don't know what you're doing, they know your name, you're going to the Pro Bowl, and eventually you too can end up like Brandon Sheriff as an All-Pro when you don't deserve it. Look at our old friend Brandon Sheriff all the way down here. What, 15th? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14th best guard in football, according to Madden. Brandon Sheriff, and I'm not just saying this because he's not here and because he shit on us. I ain't got nothing to do. I used to say this when he was here. Overrated. Brandon Sheriff was good. To me, he was never elite. Could never play a full season. Even when he was healthy, he was good, very good. He was never great to me. I think Sam Cosmi is better than Brandon Sheriff ever was. Let me rephrase that. I think Sam Cosmi can be better than Brandon Sheriff ever was in Washington. He's already kind of on that trajectory. Now, we're getting Brandon Sheriff, I won't say the back end of his career. Brandon Sheriff didn't sign a second contract here in Washington. We did franchise tag him twice. So he probably played 7 years in Washington, and then he's probably going into year 3 in Jacksonville. So he's probably like year 10. So he's not the player that he once was, but I think peak Sam Cosmi is better than peak Brandon Sheriff. That's my hot take. I don't even think that's that hot. You look at the guards on this list, and Zach Martin, who is a future first ballot Hall of Famer, deserves to be first. You got no argument from me. Chris Lindstrom is a beast in Atlanta. Again, no arguments there. Joe Thuney, once upon a time, was the best guard in football when he was in New England, which is why the Chiefs signed him. He's been really good in New England, Kansas City, when he's been healthy. Part of the reason Nick Allegretti had to play in Kansas City is because Joe Thuney got hurt. When he's healthy, he's really good. You're doing really good things on the offensive line when you got 2 guys back-to-back at the offensive line positions on the list of top guards in the NFL. Trey Smith is really good out of Tennessee. Quentin Nelson, Q-Dog, was once upon a time the best guard in football, and still really good. He's the 5th best guard. And then we find our guy, Samuel F. Cosmi, at the 6th spot. And if we're talking just specifically right guards, as you can see, he's the 4th best right guard in the league and the 6th best guard overall. So our buddy Samuel Cosmi making a name for himself. You have Tyler Smith of the Cowboys, who's only going into year 3. So that's huge praise for him as the 7th best guard. Joel Bitonio, the 8th best. Quinn Minards, 9th. Elton Jenkins in Green Bay, 10th, to round out the top 10, according to Madden. Kevin Zeitler, 11th. Wyatt Teller, 12th. Landon Dickerson, 13th. And then our old buddy, Brandon Sheriff, at 14. Not going to get too much argument out of me because I'm not watching offensive line tape like that. I just know of some of these guys, watching them, what they've done in to this point of their careers. Zeitler, that's an interesting one. At one point, he was one of the better guards in football, but he's had some rough years, especially in New York with the Giants. But nonetheless, I just wanted to highlight Sam Cosmi being the 6th best guard overall and the 4th best guard, right guard, in the NFL, according to Madden. I don't think they're that far off. Is he the 6th best guard? I don't know. That's debatable. He's not far off of that, Maybe you slide one guy ahead of him. Maybe he slides up one. I don't know. But it just goes to show you the respect that Sam Cosmi is commanding around the league. He does it again, and we do this again next year, and his first number will start with a 9, and he'll be somewhere up in the top 3-4 guys on this list. So I digress. Let's get to the Commanders players overall. So this is the list of Commanders players and where they rank. Terry McLaurin is at 89. Jonathan Allen at 89. So those are the 2 highest rated players on our team. We don't have a guy on our team whose first number starts with a 9. That needs to change. But it's factual, and it's a great way to gauge the state of our roster. We don't have a ton of blue chip players. So Bobby Wagner's at 88. He's the third best player on our team. He just got here. Cosme, we just talked about. Is he at 85? 88. And I got that off the Madden website. So, and both this one, I think I got both of these off the Madden web, but that other one was off the Madden website. I think he's at 88, not at 85. Deron Payne is at 83. We saw that already. He's the 5th highest rated player on our team. And I thought, just for shits and giggles, I'd give you 6 through 20 as well. Eckler is 81 overall. Ertz, same thing. Frankie Louvu is 81. I think we're going to see that number shoot up. I wouldn't be shocked if his first number started with a 9 next year. I expect him to kill it this year. You guys know how I feel about him. Brian Robinson is at 80. I know there are some people out there that felt like Robinson should be higher than Eckler, but it's a body of work, folks. Robinson doesn't have a 1,000-yard season under his belt, and he just hasn't gotten it enough. Derek Forrest got some respect at an 80. Okay, that's pretty good, considering that he barely played last year. Jahan Dotson, 78. We saw that already. Jeremy Chin, 78. Jamin Davis is 78. He may not even be here. Andrew Wiley, 78. McManus is no longer here, so you can tell this list is old, as he's gone, and he's been gone for a while now. Benjamin St. Juste, hence the Cosme number being inaccurate. But the rest of these are accurate because I saw these on the site, most of them at least. Benjamin St. Juste, 77. Dorrance Armstrong, 76. Tyler Biadasz, 76. Cleveland Farrell, 76. And Emmanuel Forbes, a 76 as well. So we're going to need a lot of these to look a lot different moving forward. And they will. I think a number of these ratings will go up over the next couple of years because I expect us to be a much better team moving forward. So that, my friends, is the numbers game. Terry McLaurin, 13th in the league at receiver. That's what we determined. Jonathan Allen, 5 or 6 best defensive tackle. Deron Payne, meanwhile, 10th or 11th best defensive tackle. Sam Cosme, 6, 7, somewhere in that neighborhood in terms of guards in the NFL. Those are where our best players, homegrown players, reside right now in league circles. So let's get to the comment section, see what you guys have to say before we get out of here. David Brown, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. My guy, David Brown, writes, Lou, what up, Dave? Says, my guy, what up? Nothing. Just chilling. I didn't want shit. LOL. Football on tomorrow. Hashtag raise hell. Hell yes. Football's on tomorrow. Say it again with your chest. Football's on tomorrow. Damn, it feels good to say that. And keep this in mind. After tomorrow's game, and it's going to be trash. Bears and Texans, absolutely garbage can juice start to finish. However, it's not about the game. It's about what it signifies. We won't be without some sort of competitive football, whether it's NFL or college. We won't be without football for the next 6 months. Guaranteed. Whew. We made it. Give yourselves a round of applause. We made it, everybody. We made it. Sean Moorer, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. My guy, Sean, writes, bro, you carried the shit out of my man Travis yesterday. There was no disrespect meant to Travis. I read your comments, okay? I wasn't looking to disrespect Travis. He's a young back. He's been really good the last 2 years. Remember his rookie season, he didn't even play. But over the last 2 years, he's been really good. But I think there are other guys that have been better. That's all. Better body of work, still doing it at a high level. Travis is really good. I like Travis Etienne. He says, LLS, even though in 2 years he has almost 3,000 yards from scrimmage and 17 touchdowns, put some respect on his name. I get it. And again, I wasn't looking to disrespect Travis Etienne. For those of you who don't know what Sean is referring to, last night on the podcast, we took a look at the running back position via the Madden ratings, and it was really more of a conversation that we had on the podcast the week prior about running backs and what the top 5 looked like, or really the top 6, because we had excluded Christian McCaffrey because we know he's at the top of the list. Who are the 5 backs after McCaffrey? And so we were going back and forth about that. And so we were using the Madden ratings to see if we agreed with their list, which we did not. And Travis Etienne was pretty high on that list. I think he was at like 7, maybe. And I was like, Travis Etienne at 7? And Sean was like, yeah. And I was like, it ain't cool to be a jive turkey this close to Thanksgiving. And Sean was like, yeah. Nah, he thought that Travis Etienne should be right where he was at. And I wasn't looking to disrespect. Small sample size. He's been really good. Small sample size. I thought there were others who had been really good too. But I digress. Video channel. Been a member for 12 months. Really appreciate you. Who writes, Ron's 40 men going to be down to about 6. Also, 1 year of membership in. Looking forward to more. Appreciate you getting to the 1 year mark. Greatly appreciate you, video channel. And I really, truly do appreciate you. And thank you for your year of membership. My guy video channel. And yes, remember Ron said when we win a Super Bowl, he wants his ring. For what? You get nothing and like it. Okay. They've wiped this roster basically clean of anything he's done here, which he didn't do very many good things. I'm hoping Jahan Dotson works out because that'll be one of the few guys that, and Sam Cosmi will be among the few guys that have stood the test of time here that were Ron Rivera selections. Everything else has really gone to shit. And, Cornelius Lucas will probably play some type of role with this team. And that was a Ron Rivera, signing here. So got to give him a little bit of credit there too. But a lot of the guys that are really good, Jonathan Allen, Daron Payne, Terry McLaurin, they all predate Ronald Rivera's arrival. So he really didn't leave us very much stuff. And Brian Robinson Jr. too. We got to mention him. I think he's going to ultimately be really good for us. I think we start to see Brian Robinson emerge this season. At least that's the hope. Lorenzo Simpson, my guy Zoe, been a member for 34 months, getting close to that 3-year Annie. Really appreciate you, Zoe. Writes, what happened to my guy with the glasses, Blankenship? Bring him in to compete. No, you talking about Rodrigo Blankenship. Hell no, I'm not bringing in Rodrigo Blankenship. He was awful the last time I saw him with the Indianapolis Colts. His confidence was shot. He started out really good for the Colts. And, with kickers, that confidence is a fleeting thing, boy. You have a down, and the best kickers are mentally tough because there's going to be a year in there, maybe 2, that are rough. But the good ones are able to somehow fight through it and show signs that, hey, that guy that was one of the best kickers in the league is still in there. Rodrigo Blankenship went kaput when shit started going downhill for him in Indy. He was awful. So I'm good on Rodrigo Blankenship. And any guy that looks like he does, he looks like he was casted straight out of Little Giants. He can't be my place kicker. Sorry, not sorry. Duncan Wright, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. My guy Duncan writes, there has been no snaps, no games, not even any preseason games. Where exactly are you getting your facts and rankings from? Well, that's a great question. And if you have been listening for the last 2 hours, you would know we're talking about Madden rankings. Now, again, Madden rankings, they're largely based off of last year, coupled with body of work. But we all watch games. Some of us do. I can't say all of us do. We have a working knowledge of what these players' games are about and where we think they should be. So it's always a healthy discussion. Christopher McLaughlin, my guy Chris, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. My guy Chris writes, hey Lou, sup Chris? Hope all is well with you and the family. Likewise. Likewise, Chris. 2 questions. 1, how do you see Chris Rodriguez being used in the offense and why? 2, what 3 players do you see currently the coaches having the most problems with cutting to finalize the 53-man roster? That's a tough question to answer right now because there's a lot of football in practice and camp and joint practices and preseason to talk about. But I can give you a few names. I'll give you a few names to satisfy. Let's start at the safety position. You're going to have to cut somebody. You're not keeping 7 safeties. Tyler Owens is going to make it interesting, but he's undrafted for a reason. He still has a long way to go, and I think it's not going to be hard to cut him. What is going to be interesting is, do you want to expose him to the rest of the league in preseason games in which he might show the ability that we all know he has? This guy's 6'2", 6'3". This guy's 220, 25 pounds. This guy is running a 4.3 and some change. He's an athletic freak. And he's got the size to match. In an NFL that covets guys who are hybrid players who have tremendous athleticism and speed, he checks all the boxes. You put him out there in the preseason and he looks damn good in 2 preseason games. You cut him thinking you can sneak him through to your practice squad, and somebody else might be like, yeah, we could use a safety. We'll take it. I think you're going to have to make some tough decisions at safety with him and Percival Butler, Dominique Hampton. I think you're going to keep Dominique Hampton. You drafted him. But I think there's a cluster there. I think their tight end is big. If you're not keeping 4, I mean, if you're not keeping 4, Jesus, you're going to lose one of those guys between Amani Rodgers or Cole Turner, I believe. You probably won't lose both of them, but somebody's going to sign one of those guys. But if you keep 4, got a decision to make. Amani Rodgers is the guy that I just look at and I say, man, that's the guy that we don't currently have on the roster. We haven't had on the roster. And if you want a tight end that looks like the tight ends around the league that are matchup problems, who can create, big explosive plays in the pass, he looks the part. I think they're going to have a tough time cutting him or Cole Turner, but Amani Rodgers for me is one of those guys. Defensive tackle. John Ridgeway, Fedarian Mathis. I know you guys are down on Mathis. I get it. But I don't even want to say that he was a former second-round pick because that doesn't matter. They didn't spend a second-round pick on him. And none of us thought he was a second-round pick when he was drafted. But he can play. He's not a scrub. Okay? He's not a scrub. So they're going to have to make a decision there because unless you're keeping 5, and it's not out of the realm of possibility that they keep 5 defensive tackles. So they may not have to make a decision there. Receiver. It's going to be tough towards the back end. Not because it's super talented and you're like, oh my God, but it's just what best suits the team and their needs. Who fits and checks the most boxes. Running back, it could get interesting. You asked about Chris Rodriguez. He doesn't have to make this team. If they keep 3 running backs, he's in a fight for his life with Jeremy McNichols. Okay. So my guess is they keep 4 and Rodriguez is fine. Even if they keep 3, I still think Rodriguez has a leg up on Jeremy McNichols, but it's not a foregone conclusion. And McNichols has working experience with both GM Adam Peters and running backs coach Anthony Lynn. So again, something to look out for. So those are just a few names. We could keep going. There's plenty of guys that are going to be interesting to see, what they do at corner. And we'll learn more of the corners and more of the guys, and we'll get to see kind of where they fit. But it's going to be interesting. Some of these positions are going to be really interesting. As far as Rodriguez is concerned, barring injury, I really don't see a big role for him. I think about the 49ers and how they kind of did things, and you look around the NFL, most teams, if they're healthy, they aren't playing 3 and 4 backs. We got a 2-headed monster back there, and as long as they're not playing Eckler and Robinson simultaneously a ton, which they'll be on the field together, but they're not going to be on the field together all the time. If they what will be interesting? Here's what I think could be interesting. If we turn into a dynamic team, and I say dynamic because I don't know if the offense will be dynamic, but the offense could score points because the defense is dynamic, forcing turnovers, setting us up with great field position, hell, scoring on their own, pick sixes, scoop and score fumbles, things of that nature. And all of a sudden you look up and we get to the fourth quarter and we're up on a team 34-13, and now we're just looking to run the clock out. A guy like Chris Rodriguez could eat some of those carries. You know what I'm saying? I could see him, in instances where they're looking for in between the tackles thumper on first and second down, and they want to give Brian Robinson a blow. That's Chris Rodriguez's role. I don't really see him being on the field in, passing situations as a pass catcher. That's not his forte. And honestly, if it ain't Brian Robinson, it's probably gonna be Austin Eckler. So I just don't see his role being that expansive right now. But if we could get into a situation where we're up late in the game, as long as he shows the ability to hold on to the ball, and he's had fumbling issues in his career. He fumbled last year. If he can show the ability to hold on to the football, you get into some situations where you're up big and you're looking to run that 4-minute offense, burn clock, et cetera, run the football, be physical. He could definitely live in a world where we're trying to run out clock. And, they're not looking to put Eckler in the game in those situations, but rather Robinson and Chris Rodriguez Jr. So it'll be interesting to see. He's got to make the team first. We talked about it being a numbers game, and he easily could be on the wrong side of the ledger next season. Duncan Wright, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. Who writes, "Hey Lou, guess what I did yesterday? I went to a garage sale and bought a VCR for $1. So if you want to watch your old Super Bowls, hit me up." Good one. Good one. That was one of your best zings, man. That was a good one. Touche. Tip of the cap to you. That was a good one. It's only going to get worse from there. I can only imagine if you super chatted anymore. It's only going to go downhill from there. Christopher McLaughlin, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. My guy, Chris, writes, hey, Lou. What's up, Chris? With the Hall of Fame game tomorrow, who do you see making the Hall of Fame next year? Eli Manning, lock. Marshawn Lynch, he might get in. They might make him wait a little bit longer. Terrell Suggs, he should get in, but he might have to wait. Luke Kuechly is definitely getting in. Clay Matthews, he should have to wait. He should have to wait. Darren Sproles, and who else and why? I'd have to look at the list. There's gonna be some offensive linemen in there. You didn't name a single offensive lineman, so there's gonna be a lineman or two in there. I'm hoping, I'm praying that our guy Jake gets in finally. He's no longer in the modern. He's now part of the legends thing or whatever. When you age out of the modern day list, I don't give a shit how he gets in at this point. He just deserves to be in, and I want him to get in while he's alive so he can accept his place in NFL lore where he belongs, which is in. I mean, you could argue of the Hogs, he was the best of the bunch. It's a travesty that he's not in, but Eli's definitely getting in without question. And I still debate whether he's a Hall of Fame quarterback or not. But his last name is Manning. He won 2 Super Bowls, and he's got some of the most iconic plays in Super Bowl history. Thus, he's getting in, okay? Whether you like it or you don't like it. Luke Kuechly was dominant. He's getting in, just like Patrick Willis, career cut short due to injuries or, health concerns. But the window that they played, they were dominant. Same can be said for Luke Kuechly. Just like Patrick Willis, who's getting in this year, I expect Luke Kuechly to get in next year. The rest of these dudes, I could easily see them having to wait a year or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 before they get in. All of them are probably Hall of Fame players, though. When you look at their numbers and what they were able to do, all of them are probably Hall of Fame players. Darren Sproles is very interesting because his career numbers are probably through the roof, but he was never the best player. He was never this. He was never that. But he was a damn good return man and a hell of a player out of the backfield. So I'd love to see his numbers, but I'd imagine at some point Darren Sproles will probably get in. Of the guys you mentioned, Manning, Lynch, Suggs, Kuechly, Matthews, Sproles. Manning, Kuechly are locks. I'd then say Suggs and Lynch wouldn't surprise me either, but I don't think either one of them are getting in on the first ballot. Maybe 2 or 3 years down the road. Duncan Wright, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. My guy, Duncan Wright. Excuse me, writes, you on tomorrow or you scared of me? You better not run, man. I'll be on. Hall of Fame game tomorrow. I'll be on tomorrow to signify the start of the new league year. Blessings to us all. I'll be here. You know where to find me. Duncan Wright. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. My guy, Duncan, writes, damn, Lou, Commanders news is boring, but tonight I literally... I think that's supposed to be a you. You make me want to jump off of a bridge. Stop. No one cares about Commanders. Meh. Clearly you do. That's why you're here, Duncan. Don't you see? Deep down inside, you told me your mom is a Commanders fan. Deep down inside, you got love for us, man. Just admit it. I'm waiting for the day for you to say, I'm a closet Commanders fan, Louie T. And I'll be here waiting when that day comes. Because we all know it. You know it. Everybody else out there knows it. And I know it. You really got love for us for real. And it's okay. And when you're ready to admit that, I'm here for you, man. I'm here. Duncan Wright, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Duncan writes, to people who say I pay to hate, yes, I hate you all. No, you don't, Duncan. You're a good guy. Because you secretly root for the good guys. Meh. Brandon N. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. My guy, Brandon N. writes, what's good, Lou? What's going on, Brandon? Says season coming quick. I'm telling y'all, a lot of people, it was funny when I first told everybody the Commanders play next Saturday. A lot of people was like, wait, what? They do what? I'm like, it's a Hall of Fame game. It's an NFL game on Thursday. And a lot of people was like, wait, check my calendar. What is Louie T talking about? Then he was like, oh shit, the Hall of Fame game is on Thursday and Washington plays the following Saturday. Yes, it is gonna get here quick. Says some of the position battles stuff coming out of camp has been surprising. My flag at receiver, Terry, Han, Luke is 3A, Diami is 3B, Alameda Zacchaeus is 4, and Crowder is 5. So you got 6 receivers there. All right. So you got your 6 receivers that you think they're going to keep. That's a good list. And I wouldn't be shocked if that's what it ultimately turns out to be. It's a really good list. I think, like I said, Diami is the guy that stands to lose the most from the signing of Byron Pringle. He is the guy that becomes expendable if Byron Pringle gets in here, jumps in, and immediately is able to assimilate himself to the system. Now, again, Pringle could be the last guy in and the first guy to leave, right? He can come in here, they see all they need to see in a couple of weeks, and they cut his ass. Like Coach Boyu, cut his ass. He could be gone. Or he could make this roster and they could trade Dyami Brown or just flat out cut him. I don't see Dyami Brown getting cut at all. Period. The only way Dyami is not here is if they find a trade partner and they deem that value to be good enough to move on from Dyami Brown. And again, you're not moving on from Dyami Brown unless you have somebody that can fill the void that he would leave. Yes, Dyami Brown would leave a void here if he was not here. He serves a purpose on this roster. Pringle can fill those shoes. If they don't like what they see with Byron Pringle, then Dyami Brown is here. If they do, Dyami Brown could be gone. But I like your list. I like it a lot. Rockman 1033. Been a member for 23 months. We are ever so close to making you that 2-year honorary member and you getting that customary 2+ year salute. You are close, Rockman 1033. Right? Why do you believe they re-signed Pringle? I talked about that already. But if you got here late, I'll rehash it for you quickly. I think it was more about special teams. Byron Pringle has shown the ability. They don't know what the hell they're going to do on the kickoff. That is evident by how many guys they're still trotting back there to field kicks. They're still trying to figure out who gives them, the best chance to be successful back there. Byron Pringle has NFL kickoff return experience. He's returned a kickoff for a touchdown. He returned kicks for us last year. Not very good, I may add, but he does have experience and he does have the ability, and he can run. He has speed. He can play the receiver position. He's a core special teamer, a guy that can get down there, down punts, make tackles, et cetera, et cetera. He does everything Dyami Brown does, and he returns kicks. So if Byron Pringle can come in there, return kicks, and I don't know if he's a punt returner. I don't think that's in his repertoire. But if somehow he manages to emerge as a guy that can return punts, oh, well, shit. Sign him up right now, right? He's got a legitimate shot. I think he's here more so because they're looking for an answer, and he may be it on special teams, more so than oh, they don't like what they have at receiver. They got a bunch of guys on that back end log jam at receiver. Bunch of guys. That's why they cut 2 receivers. They could have cut guys at other positions. They cut 2 receivers because they got a bunch of dudes at the back end of their receiver position vying for 1 or 2 spots. They got plenty of guys back there battling. They are fine at receiver. I'm not telling you we got a lot of top end talent. We don't. But if you're talking back end of the roster, it's a bunch of dudes. Mitchell Tinsley, Bryson Tremaine, Jamison Crowder, Olamide Zaccheaus. Now you add in Pringle. It's a bunch of guys fighting on the back end of the roster. So Davion Davis, they like him a little bit too. There's a bunch of dudes on the back end of the roster at receiver. So I don't think it's because, oh my God, they're worried about the depth at receiver. I think they're more so concerned about special teams. And he checks off all the boxes. He's got speed. He can play special teams as a gunner. He can play special teams as a returner, which is what they are most concerned about, I believe, right now. And in a pinch, if you put him in the game, he's shown the ability throughout his career. He can play the receiver position too, which some of these guys, another guy that I did not mention, Kaz Allen is in that mix. Like, it's a bunch of guys. So they're not hurting at receiver, but they are hurting on kickoffs. They're trying to figure it out. So I think he was brought here because he offers everything that they're looking for in one package. Like, Kaz Allen can be a kickoff return man. He's not a core special teamer. He doesn't run down, make tackles, and down punts. And he isn't a receiver. He's not a true receiver. So he doesn't offer you a lot of things, right? Mitchell Tinsley offers you the ability to play receiver. He can run down and make a tackle on special teams. He doesn't offer you speed, and he doesn't offer you the ability to return kicks. So he doesn't give you everything in one package, right? And we can keep going on and on and on. Like, there's only a select few. Jamison Crowder can offer you special teams prowess with his ability to field punts. He can offer you the ability to play special teams, but he doesn't offer you the ability to go down and make tackles and field punts and things of that nature, down punts on special team. That's not his forte. He can, but that's not. There are other guys that do that much better, especially at this stage of his career, but guys that are much better at that than him. Bryson Tremaine doesn't offer you any return ability. He's a core special teamer, can get down there and make tackles, down, punts. We think he can offer you receiver ability, but he's never proven that. Only way to find out is to give him an opportunity. And he doesn't offer you the type of speed that Byron Pringle offers you. So again, I go back to Pringle checks off every single box. Olamide Zaccheaus checks off every single box, right? And so these are guys that are going to have a shot to make the roster, I believe. Crowder, Olamide Zaccheaus, Pringle coming in here, I think is going to be in the mix. We'll see what ultimately happens. Just Andre, been a member for 30 months. Really appreciate you, my guy. Just Andre. Just Dre. You think McGee will replace Davis next year as a linebacker? I think McGee will replace Bobby Wagner as our starting middle linebacker next year. Now, I've heard people say, hey, if Wagner plays well this year, he could be here next year. Facts. I wouldn't rule anything out. But I really believe that they brought Bobby Wagner and Zach Ertz and Austin Eckler to a lesser degree because they signed him to a 2-year deal, not a 1-year deal like the rest of those guys. But I really believe they brought those guys here to be sort of guys that set the tone and help set the culture, right? Establish the culture. And once they've done that, you pass the torch to the young guy. In the case of Bobby Wagner, pass the torch to Jordan McGee. In the case of Zach Ertz, pass the torch to Ben Sinnott, right? We'll see. If those guys play really well, they may be back next year. There's nothing that says they can't be back on another 1-year deal next year. But the likelihood is there'll be one and done here in Washington. We'll see. I'm just going to enjoy the ride, as I told you. And if they play really well, I'd welcome them back in a heartbeat. Joe Rockhead, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. My guy, Joe Rockhead writes, Duncan, wrong, need MEHDs. He commands attention. Hey, he's a meh guy, right? He's gonna meh. And Duncan is, I see what you did there. Not right, but wrong. Duncan is just confused. That's all. There's an internal struggle that he is wrestling back and forth with. Outwardly, he wants to appear as an Eagles fan, but inside, it's killing him. There's an inner commander that wants to come out. And that's a tough place to be. But like I said earlier, when he's ready for that inner commander to finally come out, and he's ready to be loud and proud, I'm a Commanders fan. We will be here to embrace his inner commander. Until then, we'll allow him to continue to pose as an Eagles fan. We'll go along with his charade. Brandon N, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. My guy, Brandon N, double up, thank you for doubling up. Who writes, 1 to 10 odds a DBC's kickoff or punt returns. Mikey, he's the one. I don't think there's any other guys they're comfortable putting back there. He is the one. We know that our head coach Dan Quinn the other day literally said that Kaz Allen and Mikey Sainristil both put their name in the hat and said, hey, don't forget about me. I want more work on special teams, on kickoffs. So they took notice of that. So Mike Sainristil might be back there, at some point. We'll see. Of all the defensive backs, he seems like the one. Forbes has been back there too. I ain't buying it. I ain't buying the Forbes thing at all. Joe Rockhead, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. My guy Joe Rockhead writes, not excited, but extremely pleased and impressed. You've already stressed you're not going to allow them to sweep you up in this cloud of excitement and all of the things that's going on. And I told you, I don't blame you. You have every right to take a cautious approach to seeing what happens. You're not wrong. You're not wrong. You're not wrong. Duncan Wright, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. My guy Duncan writes, don't judge yourself. My mom was a Redskins fan. Facts. I know. You told me. And I know that's why you are a Washington fan, but just don't want to admit it. And it's okay. It's okay. We're here. And you just need to accept it. And at some point, I need you, Duncan, to go and find your nearest mirror and say, I'm good enough. I'm strong enough. And doggone it, people like me. And just admit that you're a Commanders fan. Just go ahead. Say, I'm good enough. Or in this case, they're good enough. They're strong enough. And doggone it, I'm a Commanders fan. Just look in the mirror and say it. Just Andre, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Just Andre writes, what do you think McGee's potential is? Real talk, I haven't seen him on the field in a Commanders jersey. I'm just telling you from what I saw when he was at Temple. I think he's going to fall right in line with the string of successful linebackers that Adam Peters helped draft in San Francisco and not draft that were successful. The linebacker, Azeez Al-Shire, undrafted. Very successful in the league thus far. 5th round pick, Dre Greenlaw. Very successful in the league thus far. I want to say Fred Warner was a 3rd round pick. So still, they kind of knew he was good. They didn't know how good he was. But all of those guys super successful in the NFL. And I think they have a chance to hit on another one here in the 5th round with Jordan McGee. I think he could be Dre Greenlaw. That type of linebacker. Now, I think McGee is more of a middle linebacker and Greenlaw is more of an outside backer. So there's a little bit of a difference there. I think he's better than Azeez Al-Shire. So I don't think he's quite Fred Warner, but I do think he is above Azeez Al-Shire. So I think his ceiling is extremely high. I think he could be really good. Like maybe never a Pro Bowl linebacker, but on the fringe of a Pro Bowl. And I wouldn't be shocked if he ends up being a Pro Bowl linebacker in this league. But again, I need to see it. The things I saw in college encouraged me, which is why I thought he'd fit in a Dan Quinn coach scheme, and why I mocked him to Washington, because I saw the talent and I saw the skill set. And I've heard good things about him in camp thus far. All the things that I saw on tape is matching up with what people are saying about his athleticism and him flying around out there. And then you couple that with the things that are being said about him from his teammates and the coaching staff about how he carries himself like a veteran. He doesn't make mistakes. He's very accountable. He's like a veteran as a rookie. These are all things that make you feel like this guy has a shot to be really good. But you got to see it on the field, obviously. Duncan Wright, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Duncan writes, Redskin fan different from Commanders fan. Fact. By the way, do you even know who your quarterback is? See you tomorrow, folks. Redskins fan, Commanders fan. There could be a difference. It could be a difference for some. For me, there's no difference. I would prefer to be a Redskin. I would prefer the old helmet and uniform and the traditional look, our true identity. But at our core, we're still Washington fans. So are you. All right, so are you. But see you tomorrow night. I'll be here. You know where to find me, Duncan. That's going to do it for me, your man Louie T, here on this fun and informative numbers game episode of the Command Post. I hope you guys join me tomorrow as we celebrate another year of football. God bless us all. We made it. So we'll be doing that tomorrow night. Bears, Texans kick off the season. Not really, but they do on with the Hall of Fame game. And then we're off and we're running. Feels good to be back. Commanders practice tomorrow, so you'll get training camp confidential. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Until then, you know what it is. Post up. Take command. You guys take care. Hit the like button on the way out if you haven't already hit it. Get the likes up to 200 before you get out of here. God bless. And good night.